Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526 Transfer Order and Harvest. After that, the development of things was similar to what Qingming expected. With the arrival of the second and third batches of Konoha support troops from the Sand Village battlefield, the counterattack of the Kurigakure became increasingly weak, and the space for activities was constantly compressed. Just like that, after another 5 days, the situation on the battlefield became completely clear, and Qingming finally received the long-awaited transfer order. The rear camp. The headquarters. In an office. Naruto handed him a mission scroll, and then said, "Qingming, you will set off early tomorrow morning. The support troops will be assembled tonight. Please be sure to arrive at a Blackstone stronghold before noon tomorrow." "Yes, Captain." Qingming took the mission scroll, responded, and said nothing more. Seeing this, Naruto did not say too much nonsense, waved his hand, and let him leave. After leaving the meeting room, Qingming paused and began to think about this mission. Obviously, this is not just a simple transfer order. As soon as the battle situation here stabilized, Naruto couldn't wait to send him to the Blackstone stronghold and also transferred some people. Although the battlefield here has received support from the Sand Village battlefield, the manpower is definitely not sufficient. Even in this situation, the other party forcibly transferred some manpower to him, which shows how urgent the situation is. But he didn't say it clearly, and it was obvious that there was another hidden reason. It was very likely that the other party had received some information, but the information was a bit vague, maybe not important, or maybe very important. In short, he was forced to do this. Is Kurigakure going to change the main attack direction to the Blackstone stronghold? Qingming suddenly had this thought in his mind. But he thought it was unlikely. Unless the top leaders of Kurigakure village can't see the situation clearly, they must fight Konoha to the death and send reinforcements from the mainland again. Otherwise, it is impossible to open up a second main battlefield with only the current troops that have invaded the territory of the Land of Fire. As for transferring the Kurigakure ninja and Aburat support, that is even more impossible. Let's not talk about whether Naruto will let the other party leave. Even if he leaves and changes direction, Naruto can also adjust the defense target against the Blackstone stronghold at the same time. So, it is meaningless to do this. Therefore, it was only the ambiguous information that the Hidden Mist village would increase its troops that would make Naruto so nervous. But is this possible? Qingming hesitated. His intuition told him that this time it would not be so simple. But no matter how he thought about it, there was no accurate answer. Finally, he shook his head and simply stopped thinking about it. As the saying goes, when the enemy comes, the general will stop him. When the water comes, the earth will cover it. No matter what conspiracy or trick there was, he would break it by himself. He had practiced hard for such a long time just for freedom. How could he be disturbed by such inexplicable things? With this thought, Qingming continued to move forward. His steps became lighter unconsciously, and the serious expression on his face gradually disappeared, turning into the indifferent face he had before. Instead of returning to his residence, Qingming came to the forest as usual and began to complete the unfinished practice plan for today. In a flash, time came to late at night. The moon was in the middle. In the forest, Qingming released the shadow clone technique for the last time and began to digest and absorb the practice experience and memories of the shadow clone in the past hour. A large amount of information poured into his mind, causing Qingming to frown slightly, but he never opened his eyes, just silently transforming these practice experiences and memories into the proficiency of the corresponding skills. Time passed by minute. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. Then, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and a hint of enlightenment appeared on his face. After being stunned for a moment, Qingming raised his hand, and as soon as he thought about it, a light blue chakra ball appeared in his palm. It was the unmarked ninjutsu, Sharingan. It rotated silently and seemed harmless, but at this time, any ninja who approached it would feel creepy. This is a deadly threat. Qingming pressed the chakra ball on the rock beside him. The next moment, it drilled into the rock without any hindrance. Qingming moved his palm away, and saw a spherical pit appear on the surface of the rock. The inside was extremely smooth, as if it was formed naturally. The expected scene of rubble flying everywhere did not appear, and only some fine rock powder was left at the bottom of the pit. There is no doubt that this is a manifestation of extreme concentration of power. Qingming nodded with satisfaction. Then, with a thought, he opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, a familiar light blue screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 19 spirit, 20 chakra, 75,200, 124,532,132,724, bloodline, Sharingan, main Gekyo, 15760/50000, 17,296 50,000, Byakugan, unawakened, 16/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV5, 3110, 5000, LV5, 3366/5000, wind style, Sharingan, LV7, 8200/20000, wind style, wind wings, LV6, 640/10000, LV6, 4400/10000, fire style, great dragon fire technique, LV5, 850, 5000, equals fire style, unburned scorch technique, LV5, 525/5000, LV6, 325/10000, water style, great shark bullet technique, LV6, 6900/10000, LV7, 2980/20000, water style, water array pillar, LV2, 400/500, LV6, 100/10000, water style, water breaking wave, LV1, 1/200, LV4, 750/2000, earth style, earth flow wall, LV4, 750/2000, LV6, 2300/10000, lightning style, lightning body, LV0, 15/100, LV1, 4/200. Shadow clone technique, LV6, 610/10000, LV6, 4008, 10,000. Shuriken shadow clone technique, LV0, 45 out of 100, LV1, 7/200. Chakra absorption technique, LV6, 4500 10,000, LV6, 5500 10,000. Rasengan, LV7, 15,920,000, LV8, 16/50000, chakra feather robe, LV0, 62 out of 100, LV1, 5/200, palm immortal technique, LV8, 40200/50000, LV8, 48720/5000, chakra scalpel, LV6, 9200/1000, LV7, 1700/2000, thin wound extraction technique, LV6, 3100/1000, LV6, 4200/1000, heart reflection technique, LV8, 21059/50000, LV8, 24131/5000, chakra control, LV6, 1300/1000, LV6, 2100/1000, guardian seal, LV5, 360/5000, LV5, 1160/5000, sealing array, LV3, 300/1000, LV3, 970/1000, perfect skills, wind style, fierce wind palm, LV5, 0/0, water style, water wave, LV5, 00, lightning style, lightning strike, LV5, 00, earth style, hardening technique, LV7, 00. It can be seen that after this round of training, his Rasengan has finally risen from LV7 to LV8. It is precisely because of this that his palm strike just now seemed to be without any fireworks, and the power was also gathered to the extreme. In this way, when he uses this technique against the enemy in the future, he will definitely be more concealed and more threatening. In addition, in the past half month, his other skills have also improved a lot. Among them, Wind style. Wind wings has been upgraded from LV6, 640 out of 10,000, to LV6, 4,410,000, and the progress has reached 40%, and it is not far from the perfect state of LV7. Water style. Great Samurai-Ninjutsu has benefited from the investment of a large amount of chakra, and has been directly upgraded by one level, from LV6, 6,910,000, to LV7, 2,980, 20,000, and its power has been greatly increased. At this time, Qingming has the confidence to block most of the ninjutsu when he uses this technique again. And this is not a limit of this technique. According to previous experience, the upper limit of this A-level ninjutsu should be LV9. In other words, it can undergo two qualitative changes. Qingming can almost foresee that when he reaches the perfect state of this technique, he may even be able to compete with a tailed beast ball. However, we have to try it to know the specifics. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming lowered his gaze. It can be seen that the other skills he focused on, such as Earth-style hardening technique, shadow clone technique, palm immortal technique, and heart reflection technique, have all improved a lot. Among them, Earth-style hardening technique has directly reached the perfect state, which not only greatly increases the effect of ninjutsu, but also saves him a lot of chakra. These chakras were divided into two parts by Qingming, 20,000 points of which were given to fire-style and shine-burning technique, which increased the chakra he invested in it every day from 20,000 points to 40,000 points. Because of this, in the past half-month, its proficiency has increased far beyond expectations, directly from LV5, 525 out of 5,000, to LV6, 325/10000. The other 30,000 points were allocated to water-style water-breaking wave, which increased its proficiency from LV1, 1/200, to LV4, 750/2000, greatly enhancing its practicality. Even so, it was because there was no chakra investment in the past week or so. If the investment is maintained at 30,000 points per day, the growth rate will be even faster. Another is the palm immortal technique. Thanks to the fact that he played the role of a medical ninja in the past period of time and treated a large number of wounded, the increase in his proficiency is about 3,000 points higher than expected. Now, his proficiency has reached LV8, 48,720 50,000, and he is only one step away from the perfect state of LV9. According to the current progress, it will take no more than 5 days for him to successfully advance. At that time, if he uses this technique to strengthen his body again, the effect will definitely be greatly improved, and the time required to improve the physique attribute will also be reduced. The only pity is that even if it is perfected, the chakra invested in it every day cannot be saved. There is no way. Strengthening the body always requires energy support. Shaking his head, Qingming cast his eyes on the other two medical ninjutsu chakra scalpel and slim extraction technique. Similar to the palm immortal technique, their proficiency has also increased to a certain extent. The former, the proficiency increased by about 2,400 points, and has now been successfully promoted to level 7, basically realizing his expected skill-free performance, and can be used in combat. The latter, because of its limited use, has only increased its proficiency by 1,100 points, and is still a long way from the perfect state of level 7. In addition, there are the two sealing techniques of Guardian Seal and Sealing Array. Because they require less chakra, the proficiency has not increased much. On the other hand, chakra control, although it does not require chakra investment, has increased its proficiency a lot. In the past, it still required him to consume chakra to practice specific skills in order to improve his proficiency. Now, it is more like a passive ability. As long as he keeps practicing other skills and upgrading their levels, its proficiency will increase. This saves Qingming a lot of worry. In addition to these skills and his plan, in the past half-month, thanks to the extra chakra provided by many mist ninjas, his other skills have also improved a lot. Among them, SYNOPSIS-level ninjutsu such as Wind Style, Fierce Wind Palm, Water Style, Water Wave and Lightning Style, Lightning Strike were directly mastered by him to the perfect state of LV500. Even though the efficiency of using the extra chakra he obtained was only 60% to 70% of the usual due to various reasons, it was still a large amount. On the first day, Qingming harvested 250,000 chakra points from the Mist Ninja. Although it decreased due to the frequent removal of the shadow clone technique and refreshing the status, it was still above 200,000 points. In this way, in half a month, he obtained 3.5 million chakra points. According to the 70% utilization rate, that is 2.5 million points. If he only learns skills with a difficulty of C level, he only needs 80 to 85 chakra points on average to gain a little proficiency. Before, his proficiency of wind style, Fierce Wind Palm was LV2, 310/500, and it takes 3,190 proficiency points to upgrade to LV5, 00. Water style, Water Wave is level 3, 60 out of 1,000, and it takes 2,940 points of proficiency to upgrade to level 5, 00. Lightning style, Lightning Strike is level 1, 1 over 200, and it takes 3,699 points of proficiency to upgrade to level 5, 00. These three ninjutsu are all C-level ninjutsu. To master them to perfection, you need 9,829 points of proficiency, which means you need 800,000 to 850,000 points of chakra. His 2.5 million points of chakra easily covered them all. Not only that, there were still 1.7 million points left. Qingming did not waste these chakras, and used them directly on water style, water array pillar, and earth style, earth flow wall. These two ninjutsu are B-level ninjutsu, and they require an average of 100 points of chakra to gain 1 point of proficiency. Therefore, 1.7 million points of chakra allowed them to gain a total of 17,000 points of proficiency. These proficiency points are evenly distributed between the two skills, which means each of them gains more than 8,000 points. Therefore, the proficiency was directly increased from LV2, 400 out of 500, and LV4, 750/2000, to LV6, 100/10000, and LV6, 2300/10000. In this way, these two skills were officially incorporated into his usual means of fighting the enemy, once again enriching his means of fighting. As for the fire style, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Because there was no chakra investment in this skill, Qingming only used it a few times during the battle, so it only increased the proficiency by a dozen or 20 points, which can be basically ignored. There are also the three skills of Lightning Style, Lightning Body, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique, and Chakra Feather Clothes. Qingming also did not invest too much chakra, and only cultivated them to the entry level, and then temporarily put them aside. It is also worth mentioning that after the Lightning Style, Lightning Strike was completed, Qingming reallocated the 5,000 chakra points taken from the Shadow Clone Technique to it. This made the chakra allocated to the Shadow Clone Technique rise from 30,000 points to 35,000 points every day, and the proficiency he could gain every day also increased from 200 points to 230 points. Because of this, in the past half month, his proficiency in the Shadow Clone Technique has increased beyond expectations, and now it has reached level 6, 4,008, 10,000. According to the current progress, it will take about 25 days for him to successfully advance to the perfect state of level 7. If he is right, by then, he will most likely naturally learn the forbidden technique of multiple shadow clone technique recorded in the Konoha seal book. Unfortunately, this is not of much use to him for the time being. Shaking his head secretly, Qingming no longer thought about it, and directly closed the panel, then stood up, formed a seal, and performed the wind style, wind wings, and flew to the direction of the camp. Today, his training plan has been completed, and it is time to go back and rest. Chapter 527, Conspiracy. The next day, early in the morning, at dawn, Qingming led two teams of people to set off. The destination is the Blackstone Stronghold. Thinking back to the time when they came here, it took only him and Uchiha Shisu a whole morning. And now, two teams, more than 100 people, if they want to arrive before noon, they can't have too much time to rest on the way. It's only because everyone is a ninja and has chakra as a supplement, otherwise it would be impossible to do this. However, when everyone is about to arrive at the destination, they are still exhausted. Qingming glanced at the somewhat chaotic team behind him, listened to their heavy breathing, and took the initiative to stop and ordered, "Okay, everyone, take a quarter of an hour." Hearing this, a group of Konoha ninjas immediately stopped and began to rest in groups of 3 or 5. Some of the Genin were even swallowing the military pills to replenish the chakra in their bodies. Qingming's physique attribute is 19 points, and the amount of chakra is more than 130,000 points. This consumption is nothing to him. Therefore, after a short pause, he performed the wind style, wind wings, and flew high into the sky. However, what he did not notice was that shortly after he flew out of the team, a Konoha ninja quietly left a mark on a big tree next to him. At this time, in the sky, Qingming scanned the surroundings and carefully observed the movements around him, fearing that he would encounter any danger. Naruto abnormal behavior finally aroused his vigilance. Moreover, this morning, when they were about to set off, the other party also told him that Kurigakure might cause trouble at the Blackstone stronghold and asked him to be careful. This basically confirmed his speculation. Therefore, he became more careful. Along the way, he would fly high from time to time, using the air advantage to observe the movements around him. However, when he was about to reach his destination, it was still calm. This made Qingming wonder if there was something wrong with the information from Naruto. This is not impossible. If the other party could confirm the accuracy of the information, they would not make such an ambiguous arrangement. Obviously, he was not very sure about the information he received. That's why Qingming came back to help urgently. Naruto, who received the first-hand intelligence, couldn't confirm the authenticity of the intelligence, so Qingming, who was carrying out a mission according to the order, couldn't confirm it. So, all he could do was be careful. Fortunately, his real strength far exceeded everyone's imagination. No matter what accidents occurred, he had the confidence to deal with them, so he didn't worry too much. Time passed by minute. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed. Qingming fell back to the ground. During this time, no abnormal situation was found. Qingming glanced at the people sitting or standing on the ground, without much nonsense, and directly ordered, "Everyone, gather immediately." Hearing this, a group of Konoha ninjas did not dare to disobey at all, and immediately stood in a defensive formation. Seeing this, Qingming nodded with satisfaction, and then said, "Let's go." After that, he took the lead and ran towards the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. Seeing this, the people behind immediately followed. This walk took nearly an hour. At this time, the sun was already overhead, and everyone had arrived at the outskirts of the Blackstone stronghold. Next, they only had to pass through the forest in front of them to enter the defense zone of the Blackstone stronghold. Oh, I forgot to say that with the failure of the Mist Ninja counterattack in Eugenport, all the Mist Ninjas on the entire front line were now in a defensive posture, including those from Fiayu Town who were originally guarding outside the Blackstone stronghold. Therefore, Qingming did not have to worry about his team being stopped outside the stronghold. In addition, this time, their actions were very secretive and very fast. Even if the Mist Ninjas in Fiayu Town or other nearby places received the news and wanted to stop them, it would be too late. Therefore, Qingming was more relieved. Looking at the dense forest in front of him, Qingming directly ordered the team to continue moving forward. He was going to pass through the dense forest in one breath and enter the defense zone of the Blackstone stronghold. However, accidents always come unexpectedly. Not long after entering the dense forest, they encountered an ambush in the forest. Qingming looked at the densely packed Mist Ninjas in front of him. His face was very gloomy. Obviously, these people had been lying in ambush here long ago. He just said that if they were discovered later, the other party would definitely not have time to make arrangements, let alone gather so many people. In addition, the other party handled the traces too cleanly, and even he fell into the trap without checking for a while. All of this shows that the other party had been waiting here for a long time. And if they had time to prepare in advance, it means that their whereabouts were leaked. Now, it depends on who the other party is targeting, this Konoha army, or himself. If it is the former, it is easy to say, it is nothing more than an ordinary military operation, but if it is the latter, Qingming's eyes flashed with a cold light. If so, he must let the other party know what cruelty is. And how did their whereabouts leak out? Naruto, Qingming's first reaction was the other party. But soon, he ruled out this answer. If even the other party is a spy, then Konoha is still useless, just surrender directly. As for whether it is specifically targeting him, it is not to say that this possibility does not exist, but it is too small. Although the relationship between the Uchiha clan and the Nara clan is not very good, it is not very bad either. It is unlikely that the other party specifically targets him. Most likely, the other party is also one of those who are kept in the dark. In this way, the intelligence is very problematic. However, being able to come up with intelligence that even Narkigwang is unsure of, and forcing the other party to obey, and involving him without any trace. This ability seems to be something that few people or forces can do even in the entire ninja world. Could it be them? Suddenly, Qingming thought of Danzo and his root organization. This is not Qingming's random association, but Danzo has done too many bad things and has dealt with him several times. The war is about to end. If he misses this opportunity, it will not be so easy to deal with him again. With the other party's temperament, it is very likely that he will take advantage of the last chaos before the end of the war to get rid of one or two annoying guys. What's more, he had just destroyed his secret base on the Ghost Realm Island not long ago. Although there was no evidence left, it was possible that Danzo could lock him in some way. In this way, it was natural to deal with him. Danzo would not tolerate provocation from others, let alone a little kid from the Uchiha clan. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Qingming's mind quickly, but they were temporarily suppressed in his heart. Concentrating his thoughts, Qingming began to think about how to deal with the situation in front of him. There is no doubt that a head-on confrontation is definitely not possible. The opponent is far superior to him in terms of both number and strength. But if he runs away, Qingming glanced behind him. Now, he doesn't think the way he came is still safe. Since the opponent can send people to ambush here in advance, it is nothing to cut off their retreat. Sure enough, do we still have to fight first? Qingming looked at the group of mist ninjas who were ready to move in front of him, and muttered in his heart. Chapter 528, Show of Power and Discovery. Just as he was thinking this, the mist ninja in front of him moved. Someone shouted, "Fire!" The next moment, dense kunai shot towards them, like raindrops, covering the sky and earth, leaving no place for them to hide. Seeing this scene, some Sharingan in the team turned pale and took 2 steps back unconsciously. Similarly, other mid-level and Joganin were also nervous, holding kunai in their hands, staring at the incoming kunai with their eyes, ready to block at any time. It can be predicted that if these kunai are really shot, then the formation of their own side will inevitably be in chaos, because there are many hidden hands with detonating tags in these kunai. Originally, their own people are not as good as the opponent, and if the formation is still in chaos, it will be even more difficult to fight. No, we must stop them. In just a moment, Qingming made a decision. Then, he took a step forward, raised his hands, and completed the seal in an instant, then slapped the ground and performed the ninjutsu, Earth Escape, Earth Flow Wall. Boom! The ground around shook. The next moment, a wall of earth about 50 meters long and 10 meters high rose from the ground, across a forest, blocking the Konoha ninjas. If it was difficult for Qingming to condense such a wall of earth in such a short time before, then now, when his Earth-style, Earth Flow Wall has reached level 6, 2300/10000, it can be said to be a piece of cake. Therefore, the Earth Wall blocked the attack of the Mist Ninjas in time. Those kunai shot at the Earth Wall, or were directly bounced off, or inserted into it, or made an explosion, but they did not hurt the Konoha ninjas behind the wall at all. Not only that, those Mist Ninjas were also seriously injured. Qingming stood on the Earth Wall, looking at the dense Mist Ninjas below, ignoring the continuous explosions around him, and directly raised his hand to seal and perform the ninjutsu again, Earth-style, Earth Rising Spear. A large amount of Earth Escape Chakra was injected into the Earth Wall through his feet, and then penetrated into the Earth through the Earth Wall, and finally turned into rock spikes as thick as a baby's arm that emerged from the ground and pierced the Mist Ninjas like lightning. In the blink of an eye, the dense forest in front of him turned into needle forest, with hundreds of rock spikes of varying lengths standing upright on the ground, like an upside-down stalactite forest, which made people's scalps numb. Facing this sudden attack, the Mist Ninjas either dodged or evaded, and most of them were fine, but there was still a small number of people whose strength was indeed average, and who were unlucky, and were the focus of Qingming's attention. Then, the whole person was pierced by several staggered rock spikes. In an instant, screams and wails resounded throughout the dense forest. All this may sound long, but in fact it happened in an instant. The time it took Qingming to form seals and perform ninjutsu twice did not allow the Mist Ninjas to react. However, this is all he can do. Under Qingming's feet, the Earth Wall that had just been gathered by the Earth-style, Earth Flow Wall collapsed rapidly because there was no chakra to maintain it. Behind them, a group of Konoha ninjas appeared again. Immediately, a loud shout came from the team of Mist Ninjas in front, "Kill!" Then, those Mist Ninjas immediately took action, one by one, holding kunai, and ran towards this side. You organize people to defend. Seeing this, Qingming said this to Konoha Jonin behind him, and regardless of whether he heard it or not, he performed wind style, wind wings, passed through the treetops above his head, and flew high into the sky. Looking at the mist ninjas who were rushing towards this side in the dense forest below, Qingming did not say a word, quickly formed a seal, opened his mouth, and performed a ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. In an instant, a huge fireball with a diameter of 30 meters was condensed by him, and the light and heat it emitted faintly overshadowed the sun above his head. Everyone below, whether it was Konoha ninjas or Kurigakure ninjas, was shocked by the huge fireball. Taking this opportunity, Qingming controlled the fireball to fall and hit the Kurigakure ninjas directly. Before the fireball got close, you could see that the treetops that were closer quickly turned scorched yellow, then cracked, and finally bang, burned. Quick, defend, get out of the way, no, shoot it down. Noisy voices came from the Kurigakure ninja team below. It can be seen that they were very anxious. In the end, the voice of shoot it down prevailed. The three Kurigakure Jonins attacked at the same time, each performing a ninjutsu, water style, water dragon bullets technique. In an instant, 3 giant water dragons were condensed by them, then soared into the sky and hit the fireball. Bang, the fireball and the water dragon collided. At this moment, time seemed to stand still. In the sky, 3 water dragons were seen in the shape of a character, holding up the huge fireball. White steam kept coming out of the place where the two sides came into contact, like boiling water, with a risk of exploding at any time. In fact, it was true. After only a breath of stalemate, the fireball and the 3 water dragons exploded at the same time, turning into large pieces of water and flames shooting everywhere. The people below were thrown into panic. However, because Qingming's initial target was the Mist Ninja team, they were the most affected. Therefore, their offensive rhythm was interrupted again. Qingming also took the opportunity to give the other party a warning. Just as he was about to continue bombarding them, some movements in the distance caught his attention. Indistinctly, he seemed to see some figures on the way here. Glancing at the Konoha team on the ground, and confirming again that there were indeed no Hyuga clan ninjas among the people traveling with the team this time, he raised his hand to remove the guardian seal between his eyebrows. The next moment, the Byakugan opened. In just a moment, his sight passed through the forward protector and saw the scene in the distance. They were indeed people, and they were a bunch of mist ninjas. Originally, his expression did not change much, because he had expected that his retreat would be cut off. But soon, his expression became gloomy. There was no other reason, he saw an unusual figure among those mist ninjas. In an instant, Qingming focused his attention. In an instant, the man's chakra meridians appeared in his eyes. But what he was concerned about was not the chakra meridians that looked like spider webs, but those densely packed insects that seemed to be sucking chakra near the chakra meridians. That's right, they were insects, and they were parasitic insects. He had seen similar scenes on some ninjas from the Aburim clan. But why would a ninja from the Aburim clan appear among a bunch of mist ninjas? This made Qingming think of a lot. That was why his expression was extremely ugly. No, we have to take him down. In an instant, Qingming made up his mind. Only in this way could he get the most accurate information, so as not to be led by the nose. It is true that with his strength, he is not afraid of being targeted, but he does not want to be worried at all times. With this thought, Qingming planned to fly directly to find the other party. But at this moment, he heard the sound of fighting below. It turned out that while he was in a daze, the Mist Ninja had already attacked and was entangled with a group of Konoha ninjas. After thinking about it, Qingming raised his hand to form a seal and performed the shadow clone technique. Bang, with a cloud of chakra smoke dissipating, 2 shadow clones with wings appeared in the field. Qingming didn't waste any words and directly asked one of them to fly to the Blackstone stronghold to ask for help from Shinonobuhisa there, and the other one assisted the Konoha ninjas below to resist the attack of the Mist Ninja. As for himself, naturally, it is most important to find out the identity and purpose of that person. With a thought, Qingming flew in the direction of the Mist Ninja over there. Chapter 529, Chopping Melons and Vegetables. In the distance, the Mist Ninjas were still approaching cautiously, and suddenly they saw a black dot flying towards them rapidly. At first, everyone could only see a black dot, but in the blink of an eye, they could see that it was a person, and they also recognized his identity. Immediately, everyone's face changed. But before they could react, Qingming had already come close, and the maximum flying speed of 200 meters per second was not to be underestimated. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Qingming did not deliberately look at the ninja who was suspected to be from the Aburin clan, but scanned everyone below. It can be seen that there are about 2 teams here, more than 30 people. However, although they are small in number, their average strength is far superior to the mist ninjas ambushing in the dense forest ahead. Basically, there are no ninjas below the chunin in the team. Even, there are 5 jonin, although only one of them is a real jonin, and the other 4 are just special jonin with 1 skill, but such strength is already good. Unfortunately, they are facing Qingming, which is not good enough. The 2 sides were already hostile, so there was no nonsense after meeting, and they started fighting directly. Swoosh, 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 dozens of kunai were shot out, aiming directly at Qingming. Qingming did not dodge, and raised his hand to perform the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. Past experience told him that facing such an attack, the powerful wind style, great breakthrough was the best. Sure enough, as a gust of wind blew out of his mouth, not only were the kunai blown back by him, but even the group of mist ninjas who shot kunai below had to dodge under the influence of this gust of wind. Looking at the slightly chaotic crowd below, Qingming's eyes condensed, found the right opportunity, stopped casting the spell, and then flapped his wings. The whole person shot out like a sharp arrow, and in the blink of an eye, he came in front of the mist ninja. The mist ninja was startled by the sudden appearance of Qingming and couldn't help shouting. The next moment, he wanted to attack. Unfortunately, it was too late. Almost at the moment when the 2 looked at each other, Qingming used the Genjutsu Sharingan to control the other party. Then, he formed a palm with 5 fingers and brushed across the other party's neck. A layer of light chakra attached to his palm, instantly cutting off the other party's carotid artery. This is not any other ninjutsu, but a medical ninjutsu that has been promoted to level 7 and can be performed without the need for hand seals, chakra scalpel. In this kind of close combat, the chakra scalpel can be said to be very useful. It is not only hidden, but also sudden. Just like now, this Kurigakure Chunin barely had time to react before he was killed. Whoosh! Hearing the exclamation of the Kurigakure Chunin, a Kurigakure special jonin who was closer immediately locked his position and threw the kunai in his hand. Qingming glanced at it and saw that the kunai was wrapped in a layer of wind escape chakra. Obviously, this is a precious chakra conduction ninja tool. In this way, driven by wind escape, the penetrating power will be greatly increased. But unfortunately, it didn't work on Qingming. Looking at the kunai that was shot at him, he did not dodge, but raised his hand to perform the ninjutsu, earth-style hardening technique. Before, when he had not yet mastered this technique to perfection, his fair skin would immediately become rough and black when he performed it. But now, the color has only deepened a little. However, its defense is stronger than before. Then, a ding sound was heard, and even though the kunai had extremely strong penetrating power and shot at him, it could not break through his defense. Seeing this scene, Kauji Ohara's expression changed slightly. Qingming took this opportunity to flash his body and flip his palms, and used the chakra scalpel to cut the throats of 3 Kurigakure Chunins. To be honest, the strength of these Kurigakure Chunins is not bad. From the perspective of the entire ninja world, they have reached the middle level. However, in front of Qingming, they can only die. It is not much more difficult for Qingming to kill them than to kill a chicken. There is no way, the gap in strength between the 2 sides is too big. Swish, 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 more ninja tools shot at him. Qingming, with a defensive earth-style, hardening technique, flew into the sky and avoided this round of attacks. Then, he turned 180 degrees, raised his hand to complete the seal, and performed the ninjutsu, fire-style, great dragon fire technique. Puff a flame spurted out of his mouth, and instantly split into 3 giant fire dragons, and then burned towards the mist ninja below from the left, middle and right directions. Water-style, water array wall water-style, water dragon bullet technique. Then 2 senior ninjas in the mist hidden team attacked at the same time, respectively performing these 2 ninjutsu, blocking 2 fire dragons. But the 3rd fire dragon still rushed into the mist ninja team. Fortunately, it was only 1 fire dragon, and they still had room to dodge. But in the next moment, 2 crackling sounds were heard, and a dazzling lightning burst out from the palms of Qingming's hands. Then, 2 electric snakes sprang out, spanning a distance of more than 10 meters, and hit 2 mist ninjas. awakens to the painful sound came out of the mouths of the two mist ninjas, but it only lasted for a moment, and then disappeared. Looking at the two again, they were already charred black, lying on the ground, motionless. Faintly, it seemed that the smell of meat could still be smelled. Obviously, Qingming's move of lightning release, lightning strike, was quite powerful. Whoosh! Qingming turned around, flapped his wings, and immediately moved away from the mist ninja team, avoiding the subsequent attacks of other mist ninjas. The whole action was clean and neat, without any delay. However, after this time, Qingming did not rush to kill a sneak attack, but floated in the air, looking down at them from a high position. Seeing this, the mist ninjas did not dare to attack at will, and could only be careful and alert. It can be said that Qingming's actions just now have left a deep impression on them. All kinds of ninjutsu are at his fingertips, and with the Sharingan and the advantage of flying, killing them is just like cutting melons and vegetables, which makes people feel cold. Qingming's eyes swept over these people one by one. He keenly noticed that those mist ninjas, whether they were Chunin or Jonin, even if they had a little fear of him in their hearts. However, only the ninja who was suspected to be from the Aburim clan did not have a trace of fear. Although the expression on his face was the same as other mist Chunin. With panic and fear, the powerful inside of the Sharingan still allowed Qingming to see at a glance that it was just a disguise. And this also made Qingming more certain of his previous guess in his heart. The one who calculated him this time was probably Danzo. In the ninja world, it is estimated that only those ninjas under Danzo who have undergone self-annihilation training and completely regard themselves as mission tools can be so face death with indifference. In this case, there is no need for him to waste time on other mist ninjas. Thinking this in his mind, Qingming secretly glanced at the several Karigakure Chunins surrounding the Aburim clan ninja, and then glanced at the 5 Karigakure Jonins who were staring at him covetously. Without the slightest hesitation, he flapped his wings again and approached the Karigakure team. Chapter 530 Success. Quick, attack! Seeing Qingming approaching again, the leading mist ninja shouted loudly. While speaking, he raised his hand to form a seal and performed a water ninjutsu. He opened his mouth wide and spat out water balls the size of a baby's fist, like bullets, densely shooting at Qingming. He wanted to use this method to slow down his approach and buy time for other mist ninjas to attack. However, Qingming could only say that he thought too much. Under his fully activated Sharingan, the opponent's attack seemed to be slowed down and posed no threat. In this way, combined with the flexibility provided by the level 6 wind style, wind wings, he easily avoided all attacks. During this period, his speed was almost unaffected. Because of this, except for the 4 special Jonins and a few quick reacting Chunins, no one else had time to attack. Qingming ignored the ninjutsu and ninja tools released by these people in a hurry, and directly used an earth escape, hardening technique and chakra feather robe to resist. Among them, the former mainly resists physical damage, while the latter can resist both ninjutsu damage and ninja tool damage. Of course, its current level is only LV1, and its defense is really limited. However, Qingming used this technique not to block the attack of the mist ninja, but more to protect his clothes from being torn. In the previous round of attacks, although he used the earth escape, hardening technique to withstand it, his clothes were already full of holes. If there were another round or two, Qingming was worried that he would run naked. It is true that there are several uniforms in the sealed scroll in his ninja tool bag, but the enemy has to give him time to change clothes. Qingming does not want to fight the opponent naked. Therefore, appropriate protection is necessary. However, he regarded it as appropriate protection, but in the eyes of the mist ninjas, it was a novel ninjutsu. In the current ninja world, no one has seen the gorgeous tailed beast code of Naruto in the future. Qingming developed the chakra feather robe with reference to the scene in his memory. Although because he used the wind chakra, the chakra feather robe on his body tended to be light blue and not so gorgeous. However, the streamlined shape and the protection covering the whole body were still quite eye-catching. Several ninjutsu hide him, causing the chakra feather robe on his body to shake, but Qingming tried his best to maintain it and it was still stable. Qingming flapped his wings and escaped from the attack range of the ninjutsu. At this time, the mist ninjas had no time to launch a second attack. Qingming aimed at the ninja of the Aburim clan mixed in the crowd, and raised his hand to perform the ninjutsu, fire style, Sashoku. This technique has been upgraded to level 6 by him, and both its power and concealment have been greatly improved. But even so, the ninja of the Aburim clan still reacted and flashed away from the spot. Not only that, with a powerful insight of the Sharingan, Qingming also keenly noticed that when he performed this technique, an unusual color flashed in the opponent's eyes. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration appeared in Qingming's mind. He suddenly realized what he had overlooked. In the past half a month or even longer battles, he had never hidden the fire style, Sushoku Jutsu. However, although this technique is not a forbidden technique, it is also a secret ninjutsu unique to the Anbu of Konoha, and it is difficult to obtain it by ordinary means. If Danzo noticed this and checked the channel through which he obtained this technique, he would find that it appeared out of thin air. In conjunction with the copying ability of the Sharingan and the fact that one of the two root ninjas stationed on the Ghost World Island knew this technique, as long as the thoughts were a little divergent, it would not be difficult to connect them together. Of course, it is impossible for ordinary people to connect these two things that are not related at all, but Danzo may not. He himself would have great malice towards the Uchiha clan. Not to mention that this matter was originally done by Qingming and could not withstand investigation. Even if it was not, he would probably associate it in this direction. This is just like how he instinctively connected the plot he encountered to Danzo, the king of blame. Even if there seems to be no connection between the two, he can make up a lot of things in his mind. In this way, it is natural for him to finally connect him with the destruction of the Onagashi Island base. Especially since he also has flying ninjutsu and has the time to commit the crime. Then, with Danzo's personality, it is normal to directly regard him as the murderer. In this way, it makes sense to target him again. Although there is no evidence yet, Qingming's intuition tells him that this is the truth. However, even if Qingming guessed that the cause of this incident might be him, he did not have any intention of letting the other party go. Not to mention that he still needs to confirm his guess from the other party, even if he doesn't need to. As long as he encounters a root ninja, he will take action. This point has been decided since the end of the Chunin exam, when Danzo ordered his root ninjas to ambush him on the road. Not to mention that the other party also attacked him several times afterwards, although he resolved them one by one, and even took some advantages, but in essence, he is still the victim. Therefore, no matter what, he would not let Danzo and his root ninja go. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming flapped his wings, and his speed soared. He dodged the second wave of attacks and landed directly in the mist ninja team. The moment his feet landed on the ground, the wind-style, wind wings was released. Then, Qingming kicked the ground, spider-web-like cracks appeared under his feet, and his whole body shot out like a cannonball, knocking away several mist-hidden ninjas along the way, and finally came to the front of the Aburim clan ninja. Qingming originally wanted to use the Genjutsu, Sharingan to control the opponent. However, his reaction was also quick. Although he did not use the bugs in his body, he closed his eyes in an instant, kicked the ground with his feet, and hid behind a mist-hidden ninja. Clang! The long sword was unsheathed. Qingming swung the sword, and the rich wind-style chakra turned into a blade, slashing across the body of the mist-hidden ninja in front of him, severely injuring him in an instant. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and his body flashed, avoiding several kunai shot from behind. Then, regardless of anything, he rushed to the Aburim ninja again, and then swung a knife. He raised the kunai in his hand and blocked it accurately. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound rang out. Qingming looked at the Aburim ninja in front of him, and suddenly said, "Root." Suddenly, the pupils of the Aburim ninja dilated. Obviously, he did not expect Qingming to recognize his identity. Therefore, even after undergoing strict training, there was a moment of abnormality. And all of this was seen by Qingming's Sharingan. Suddenly, he sneered in his heart, and did not play any nonsense with the other party. He directly stretched out his palm, and took advantage of the other party's distraction, and hit his chest with a level 8 Rasengan. With the help of the white eyes under the forward protector, Qingming could clearly see that the bugs in the other party's body gathered in his chest in an instant, blocking this fatal blow for him. However, even so, he was already seriously injured. Qingming put away his sword, and his figure flashed. While avoiding the attacks of other mist ninjas, he came behind the Aburim clan ninja, and then hit him on the back of the neck. Immediately, the Aburim clan ninja collapsed. Qingming grabbed him, and then jumped a few times, leaving the mist ninja team. At this time, the mist-hidden ninjas came close to him. Unfortunately, it was too late. Qingming raised his hand to form a seal, and in an instant he performed the ninjutsu, wind-style, wings of wind, and then took the Aburim clan ninjas in his hands and flew high into the sky. Looking at Qingming, who quickly escaped from the attack range, Several mist hidden ninjas looked at each other for a while, and they all saw doubts in each other's eyes. The reason why Qingming was able to successfully leave the mist hidden ninja team just now is certainly because of his quick movements and good opportunities, but also because of the hesitation of several mist hidden ninjas. There was no way. Who made Qingming behave strangely? They actually targeted a mediocre chunin in their team. Anyone in the position of several Kurigaki or Junin would have to think too much. And because of this overthinking, they missed the best opportunity, allowing Qingming to escape smoothly. However, even if the other party did not hesitate, it didn't matter. In a head-on confrontation, Qingming would not be at a disadvantage. With his current strength and means, it would not be a big problem to spend a little effort to wipe out these Kurigaki or ninjas. Didn't you see that in just a short while, the other party has lost 7 or 8 people? Only 2 teams and more than 30 people were not taken seriously by Qingming. If Qingming hadn't been worried that they would flee in all directions and leave troubles, he would have used the Mangekyo Sharingan to deal with them long ago. Now it just saves him some trouble. Chapter 531 Confirmation. Holding a person in his hand, Qingming was suspended in the air, looking at the extremely alert mist ninjas below. After thinking for a while, he raised his right hand, concentrated his chakra, and performed the shadow clone technique. This was not difficult for him. Originally, there was no need for any specific hand seals to perform the shadow clone technique. In the past, he crossed his hands and formed the seal, which was just a habit. In fact, as long as the control of the chakra in a body is sufficient, it can be performed without a seal. He also needed to separate a shadow clone with wings, so he symbolically formed a single hand seal. Bang! With a cloud of chakra smoke dissipating, a shadow clone appeared in the field. Qingming glanced at the other party, then raised his chin towards the mist ninjas below and said, "You go and play with them." Hearing this, the shadow clone sneered. Then, it swooped down and approached the mist ninja team, and began to perform various ninjutsu. Qingming watched for a while, and after confirming that there would be no great danger as long as the shadow clone did not land, he flew away with the ninjas of the Aburim clan in his hands. Seeing Qingming, who left only a shadow clone and flew away directly, the mist ninjas below felt insulted and secretly relieved. To be honest, they really didn't have a good way to deal with Qingming. Now that the other party was gone, they had reduced a lot of pressure invisibly. As for the shadow clone in front of them, although it was difficult to deal with, the foundation of the shadow clone was there, and the flaws were still quite obvious. If they wanted to deal with it, as long as they were willing to pay some price, they would not worry about not being able to defeat the other party. This was much easier to deal with than Qingming's body. On the other hand, Qingming did not care about the battle between the shadow clone and these mist ninjas. He habitually gave it the heart-to-heart technique and left this place. He flew for about 5 minutes at a speed of more than 100 meters per second, and was more than 30 kilometers away from the battlefield before he stopped flying. He scanned around, and with the help of the perspective ability of the white eyes, he found an uninhabited jungle and then landed. Bang! The ninja from the Aburim clan in his hand was thrown heavily to the ground. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. 1 minute later, Qingming suddenly said, "Okay, don't pretend now that you're awake." However, the ninja from the Aburim clan on the ground still did not change. Even his breathing was as even as before, and he seemed to be still in a coma. Seeing this scene, Qingming shook his head and said again, "If you don't do it, you won't have a chance." This time, before Qingming's voice fell, the ninja from the Aburim clan on the ground suddenly changed his breathing, as if he had used all his strength in an instant. The whole person bounced up in an instant, and then rushed towards Qingming like a cannonball. At the same time, he didn't know when a kunai appeared in his hand, aiming directly at Qingming's heart. It can be seen that even at this time, he did not open his eyes, and it was obvious that he was guarding against his Sharingan illusion. How to say it? It is worthy of being a task tool trained by the root. It is really surprising that he can still maintain such a combat awareness in this situation. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, any calculation is futile. Not to mention early, he used the Byakugan to see that the flow rate of chakra in the other party's body became faster, which was obviously a sign that the person had awakened, and he was already prepared in his heart. Even if it hadn't, the other party would not have succeeded. Just like now, looking at the Aburim clan ninja rushing towards him, Qingming just had a thought and opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. A stream of blood and tears flowed from his left eye. The next moment, the ability of Heaven's Guard was activated by him. In just a moment, He and the ninja world seemed to be in two different parallel worlds, which were clearly separated from each other. In the outside world, it was that his body suddenly disappeared. Then, his breath also disappeared. Feeling all this, Abure Muang suddenly opened his eyes and glanced around, his eyes full of doubt. Just when he was about to release the bugs in his body and conduct a larger search, Qingming's figure appeared again. And as soon as he appeared, he stood in front of him. Abure Muang's pupils shrank suddenly, and she was about to close her eyes. Unfortunately, it was too late. At the moment when the two looked at each other, Qingming cast the illusion Sharingan and pulled his consciousness into the illusion. However, Qingming still did not relax. He stretched out his hand like lightning and took out a burning detonating talisman from the palm of his hidden left hand. It was obvious that the other party failed to assassinate him and planned to die with him at the first time. Even the action of opening his eyes and looking around was to attract him to show up and get closer. Unfortunately, if it was a 3 Magatama Sharingan, he might still be hit. But now, he has opened the main Gekyo Sharingan, his inside ability has been greatly enhanced, and with the help of the Byakugan, how could he be tricked? Humph! Qingming snorted coldly and threw the detonating talisman out. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. A strong shock wave swept over. Qingming stood there, motionless. After they all calmed down, he began to deal with the root ninja in front of him. That's right, he was now 100% sure that the other party was a root ninja. Apart from the root ninja, no other ninja would be so crazy. The illusion Sharingan continued to exert its power, and Qingming began to guide the other party to recall the information about this mission. He had read the memories of several root ninjas and was experienced. He directly bypassed the memories protected by the seal technique and only read the memories that had not been sealed. In this way, the time required was greatly reduced. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming stopped the illusion and began to sort out the information he had just obtained. First of all, the person in front of him was indeed a ninja from the Abure clan, named Abure Muang, and also a root ninja, codenamed Shadowbug. According to his memory, Qingming knew that the other party had cultivated the pseudo-breathing bug based on the eradication bug of the Abure clan. As the name suggests, this kind of bug can help the host hide and change its own breath. Originally, this was just a relatively useless ninjutsu, but after Danzo knew about it, he immediately recruited it through Abure Ryoma. After that, after some professional training, combined with the forbidden ninjutsu that can copy the enemy's height, body shape and appearance, he became a perfect spy. That's right, the body in front of him is not the other party's real appearance, but the appearance of a Kurigakure Chunin named Nishikoise that he copied. It was also through this that he successfully mixed into the previous Kurigakure team. As for his own appearance, sorry, it can't be restored. Before finding the next target, he can only show this appearance. This is also the reason why the ninjutsu that changes appearance is listed as a forbidden technique. After all, no one wants to completely change into someone else's appearance after performing a mission. Even the Anbu ninja can't do it. Only the roots under Danzo can do such a thing. However, Qingming didn't care much about these. He only cared about what the other party's mission goal was this time. Are there any accomplices? As for the rest, it doesn't matter. With this thought, Qingming closed his eyes again and began to sort out the memories he had just read from him, searching for relevant information. After a moment, he opened his eyes, and a strong murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Chapter 532, The Traitor and the Yellow Bird. Qingming let out a long sigh and calmed himself down. He had found the target of the other party's mission from the memory of Abure Muang. Yes, it was him. And, as he expected, the reason why the other party targeted him was really because of the flaw of fire style, unburn art, which was not a flaw. In the past few days, the Root has been investigating the destruction of the base on the Ghost Island. At first, the other party did not suspect him. After all, he was strong in combat, but without knowing the intelligence, it was impossible to accurately lock the base. However, when he frequently used the fire style, unburn art in battle and was compiled into a file by the Root Ninja who specially collected his intelligence and reported to Danzo, things changed. Relying on intuition and years of experience in playing tricks, this darkness of the ninja world keenly connected it with the copying ability of the Sharingan. So, he began to plan a plan to deal with him. As for evidence? Sorry, there is no such thing as evidence here in Danzo. As long as you have the slightest suspicion and are targeted by him, he will not let you go. He would rather kill the wrong person than let you go. Of course, these are secondary. The most important thing is that he has great malice towards the Uchiha clan and does not want to see Uchiha geniuses like Qingming grow up. Every time Qingming performs well on the battlefield, it is like a thorn in his heart, making him unable to sleep. Danzo dreams of getting rid of him. So, he took advantage of this opportunity. He did not care whether there was a misunderstanding and directly made a plan to kill him. However, considering that the war is not over yet, he cannot cause too much disturbance in the village. At the same time, he is also worried about his lack of strength. Therefore, he made a plan to kill someone with a boro knife. The first step of the plan is to pass on the information that the hidden mist village is preparing to make trouble near the Blackstone stronghold to Naruto. This is not very difficult for Danzo. Because Naruto's channel for obtaining intelligence is the Anbu, and the Anbu has been infiltrated by Danzo. Many times, the root acts outside and uses the name of the Anbu. Therefore, this information was smoothly heard by Naruto. Danzo was not afraid of Naruto's verification, because this was originally the plan of the hidden mist village, but the relevant information was slightly exaggerated by him, so as to force Naruto to make a decision to support the Blackstone stronghold as soon as possible. The second step was to use various means to arrange Qingming into this support force. This was not difficult at all. Naruto's style of doing things had been figured out by Danzo. The reason why he wanted to take this opportunity to intervene was that he considered that Naruto would most likely send Qingming, who was born in the Blackstone stronghold and was more familiar with the situation there, so he released this information. The only variable was that Qingming was unwilling to leave the main battlefield. Fortunately, Qingming cooperated very well. So, the second step was also successful. As for the third step, it was a real borrowing of a knife to kill someone. After confirming that the first two steps were completed, the information about Qingming and his group was directly leaked to the hidden mist village by Danzo. So, there was an ambush not long ago. If it was against an ordinary person, it would be almost over here. Facing an enemy that is several times larger than himself and with his retreat cut off, it is impossible for him to survive. But Qingming is not an ordinary person. Therefore, this is just the beginning, and it is used by Danzo to consume his chakra and state. The real killer is actually the 3 hidden root teams. That's right, there are 3 more root teams hiding near the battlefield. In the memory of Abure Muang, there is an order from Danzo to cooperate with a root team in the dark to surround and kill him. However, Abure Muang doesn't know where these orioles are. In addition, Qingming also knew from Abure Muang's memory that there was a root insider in the support force he led. He was mainly responsible for guiding the Abure Muang and the hidden root team behind him. This was another arrangement made specifically for the fear that he would not follow the predetermined route. Both our own side and the enemy side have arranged their own people. This style of doing things is really worthy of the title of Darkness of the Ninja World. Qingming sneered and quickly recalled the relevant information of the people in the team and their performance along the way. However, what disappointed him was that no matter how he recalled, he did not find any suspicious targets. Obviously, this inner ghost has strong business capabilities. In addition, the performance of Abure Muang who self-destructed just after a disagreement, it can be seen that Danzo sent out elites this time. Unfortunately, he never thought that he actually had the Byakugan and instantly distinguished Abure Muang, the abnormal target, from a group of mist ninjas, and then used this as a breakthrough to discover so many things. Wait, Qingming suddenly realized that there were no Hyuga clan ninjas accompanying the team this time. Was it also Danzo's work? If so, then his meticulousness was even more than Qingming imagined. However, the more so, the more the other party deserved to die. Qingming didn't want to be stared at by a poisonous snake all the time. Opening the panel, Qingming glanced at the evolution of his main Jekyo Sharingan, 17,296, 50,000. Originally, he planned to wait until his main Jekyo Sharingan evolved into the eternal main Jekyo Sharingan, and there was no risk of blindness, and then find a chance to deal with Danzo. Now it seems that he can't wait until then. This time point must be advanced. Thinking back to the various information about Danzo in his mind, at this time, Danzo's body must not be as old as it was later. However, more than 10 years later, Danzo has Hashirama cells to maintain the vitality of his body, and it should be not much different from now. But at this time, he definitely does not have that Sharingan arm. In other words, he does not have so many Sharingans to cast Izanaji and be immune to the facts that are unfavorable to him. What he needs to pay attention to is only his right eye, which is protected by bandages and sealing techniques, to avoid ending up like Uchiha Shisu, who was attacked by surprise. In this way, Qingming feels that his strength should be able to defeat the opponent. However, how to find the opponent is a problem. As a person who has been dealing with darkness for many years, Danzo has been very strict in protecting his whereabouts. Not to mention the lonely Qingming. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen may not be able to figure it out. However, Qingming was not too worried, because with the end of the war, everyone returned to the village, and the chances of meeting each other would increase. By then, there would be no worries about finding an opportunity to attack. Before that, Qingming glanced at the Abure Muang in front of him, raised his hand, threw a kunai, and stabbed it directly into the opponent's throat. After a few breaths, confirming his death, Qingming performed another ninjutsu, fire style, Sashoku. Bang! A ball of fire appeared and swallowed him instantly. In a short while, he and the bugs in his body were burned to ashes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Search. A breeze blew by. The ashes on the ground fluttered and scattered in the forest. So far, Danzo has lost another excellent tool. And this is just the beginning. There are 3 more root teams waiting for him. Although he has no chance to attack Danzo now, it does not mean that he will let go of the people sent by the other party. It is true that Danzo does not care about the lives of these people, but after too many tools are damaged, it is also a hassle to replenish them. As long as it can cause trouble to Danzo, Qingming is happy to do it. As for the specific location of the 3 root teams, it is not difficult to find. Since the other party is ready to be a yellow bird, it must not be too far away from the battlefield. And with his current flying speed, combined with the perspective ability of the white eye, it is not a difficult task to search all these places. Therefore, it is not important whether there is a specific location. Do it as soon as you think of it. Qingming immediately raised his hand, formed a seal and performed the ninjutsu wind-style wind wings. Swish! A pair of light blue chakra wings appeared behind him. Then, Qingming formed a seal again and performed the ninjutsu, chakra feather robe. Suddenly, his whole body was wrapped in a layer of light blue chakra, as if he was wearing a blue robe, and the whole person had a more ethereal feeling. Qingming felt that if he were to travel to the world of immortal cultivation now, he would be more or less respected as an immortal master. By the way, it seems that the ninja world can also cultivate immortals, right? Perhaps, after I deal with the troubles on my body, I can also pursue the immortal path. Qingming will not easily miss any method that can improve his strength. Moreover, in his cognition, cultivating immortals is the native extraordinary path of this world. As for chakra, it is just the extraordinary power brought by 2 aliens. Even the blood of the Uchiha clan in Qingming's body is related to this. If you want to break the limitations of blood and climb to a higher peak in strength, then it is necessary to try another extraordinary path. Moreover, these 2 extraordinary powers are not incompatible. Immortal chakra. This can counter the power of yin and yang escape. With such power, Qingming would not give up. However, these are all later stories. The most important thing now is to deal with those hidden Orioles. With this thought, Qingming immediately flapped his wings and flew high into the sky. In almost a blink of an eye, he soared to a maximum speed of 200 meters per second. At this time, even with the protection of the chakra feather robe, Qingming couldn't help but squint his eyes. There was no way, the wind blowing in his face was too strong. Perhaps, after this time, I should allocate some chakra to the chakra feather robe to improve its level. Qingming thought so in his heart and quickly returned to the forest battlefield. At this time, the battle here was still going on. Qingming was not in a hurry to search for the traces of those root ninjas, but communicated with the 3 shadow clones through the heart communication technique. Not to mention the shadow clones on the front battlefield, they were still helping the Konoha ninjas below to resist the siege from the mist ninjas. The shadow clones on the back battlefield were more miserable, because they could not hold on for long because of the deliberate targeting of several mist ninjas. As for the shadow clone who went to the Blackstone stronghold to seek support, his action was relatively smooth. As early as 10 minutes ago, he had already arrived at the Blackstone stronghold and successfully met Sanonobuhisa. When he told the situation here, The other party immediately began to organize people and rushed here. Next, as long as these Konoha ninjas on the front battlefield hold on, the support of the Blackstone stronghold will arrive in less than half an hour. Alice, they were originally supporting the Blackstone stronghold, but now it has become the Blackstone stronghold that supports them, which makes Qingming a little speechless. However, they can be regarded as clearing the mines for the Blackstone stronghold in advance. It can be foreseen that after this battle, the probability of the hidden mist village causing trouble here will be greatly reduced. And Qingming can also improve himself with peace of mind in this environment. Various thoughts flashed through his mind. After confirming that there was no risk of collapse on the front battlefield for the time being, Qingming began his own carpet search. With the front battlefield as the center of the circle, he opened his Byakugan and quickly searched outward. It must be said that the Byakugan's ability in reconnaissance is indeed far superior to the Sharingan. In just less than 2 minutes, he found the hiding place of a group of root ninjas. The dozen or so people on the other side hid very well, but they couldn't resist the Byakugan's ability to see through, so Qingming easily found them. These people were hiding about 700 to 800 meters west of the front battlefield. At such a long distance, they naturally couldn't see the situation on the battlefield directly, so they could only use some special ninjutsu or summoned beasts. However, these are not important. The important thing is that Qingming has found them. Then, the next step is to solve these troubles. With a thought, Qingming immediately flapped his wings, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived above their hiding place. Then, without giving them time to react, he fired a super large fire-style, great fireball technique at their hiding place. These root ninjas didn't expect Qingming to find them so quickly, or rather, they didn't think that Qingming would actually find them. Therefore, they were caught off guard. Even though these root ninjas were experienced in combat, they still seriously injured 3 people on the spot. Qingming ignored the doubtful looks of these people, raised his hand, and once again used the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. Boom, another huge fireball fell. The 3 seriously injured root ninjas turned into charcoal on the spot, and the remaining 9 root ninjas were forced to separate. However, their reaction was also quick. Since they couldn't be the yellow bird, they had to force it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, in an instant, dozens of kunai and shuriken flew out. Qingming glanced at them and immediately saw traces of poison and detonating tags on them. Without any hesitation, Qingming flapped his wings and immediately dodged the attack. At this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a person who was making hand seals and performing some ninjutsu, but for some reason, the ninjutsu he performed gave Qingming a sense of familiarity. Immediately, Qingming was very alert, flapped his wings, and took the initiative to distance himself from the opponent. The next moment, a sharp whistle was heard. In just a moment, blood flowed from Qingming's ears, and the whole person's flying posture was unstable for a moment, but fortunately he did not fall. At this moment, Qingming knew the source of the familiar feeling. It turned out that this person was performing a sound wave ninjutsu. Obviously, the root ninja had collected very detailed intelligence on him and knew that he had suffered several losses due to sound wave ninjutsu. Therefore, they specially found such a ninjutsu to deal with him. It was only because he was still far away, otherwise, with the effect of this ninjutsu just shown, it would be possible to seriously injure him by surprise. At that time, he might be forced to use the power of Heaven's Guard to drive away this negative state. Fortunately, the opponent was caught off guard by him, and in a hurry, he did not play the maximum effect of this ninjutsu at all. In this case, don't blame him for being rude. Thinking this in his mind, Qingming aimed at the opponent's position, immediately raised his hands to form seals, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, Sasuke Ayaki technique. Chapter 534, Be Cautious. Puff, a ball of fire appeared out of nowhere. It was about to engulf the root ninja who was performing the sonic ninjutsu. But at this moment, the opponent suddenly jumped forward and avoided the attack of the fire style, Shishoku Jutsu. Huh? Seeing this, Qingming exclaimed and was about to attack again. However, before he could make a seal again, his powerful mental perception made him discover that there was more chakra in the air around him. What is this? Qingming's heart moved, and he felt a familiar feeling again. In just a moment, he recognized what kind of ninjutsu this was. It was the ninjutsu he had just performed, fire style, Shishoku Jutsu. Qingming glanced over and instantly saw a root ninja who was making a seal towards him behind a big tree not far away. Obviously, this ninjutsu was performed by the opponent. Without any hesitation, Qingming immediately flapped his wings and quickly flew away from this dangerous area. And almost at the moment he left the original place, a large piece of fire appeared out of thin air, covering the space he had just stayed. It can be predicted that if his action was a little slower, he would be engulfed by the flames. Haha, what a good opportunity, Qingming sneered, and immediately formed a seal quickly, and fired a wind-style wind blade at the root ninja. Swoosh! A meter-long transparent wind blade appeared, and cut towards the opponent at an extremely fast speed. Even though he was hiding behind a tree, he felt a strong sense of death crisis. Without any hesitation, he dodged and jumped out of the protection of the big tree. The next moment, the wind blade cut through the trunk of the big tree. There was a swish sound, and the wind blade quickly passed through the trunk and cut the whole tree in half. Crack! The big tree could not bear the force and began to collapse rapidly. A large number of branches and leaves fell, crushing several shorter trees around, forcing several root ninjas around to dodge urgently. Seeing this scene, Qingming secretly said, "Good opportunity." Then, he raised his hand to seal and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, phoenix fire technique. In an instant, dozens of fireballs were spit out by him, like the seeds of phoenix flower, fluttering and flying towards the big tree that was falling. Soon, the big tree was ignited and turned into a huge source of fire, which quickly spread to the surroundings. Suddenly, not only the root ninja under the big tree suffered, but also the root ninja under other nearby trees were affected. Ninja, after all, is still a fragile profession with high attack and low defense. Even if it is just an ordinary flame, as long as the fire is big enough, it can burn them to death. With this thought, Qingming sealed again and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. A gust of wind blew out of his mouth and blew towards the burning forest below. Suddenly, the fire took advantage of the wind, and the wind helped the fire. The two combined to turn a large area of the surrounding forest into a sea of fire. If it were an ordinary ninja, facing this situation, he would probably be in a panic. However, these root ninjas did not. They had a clear division of labor. 5 of them attacked Qingming, attracting his attention and tying his energy, so that he could not cause further harm. The other 4 people formed seals together and each performed a water escape ninjutsu. In an instant, a large amount of water vapor gathered and turned into 4 water escape ninjutsu, rushing towards the sea of fire in all directions. Water and fire are incompatible. Almost at the moment the two met, the two sides began to fight. However, although the surrounding fire was large, it was an ordinary flame after all, while the water in the field was a ninjutsu performed by the ninja. Therefore, although the power of water escape was small, it eventually defeated the flame. After a few breaths, the flames in most places were extinguished, and only some flames in the corners continued to burn. However, it was also half dead, and a lot of black smoke came out of the burning place. After dodging the attacks of several root ninjas again, Qingming looked at the forest below. It can be seen that the trees in this area, whether they were burning before or not, are now covered with water stains. In this way, it will not be easy to ignite them again. Qingming secretly said it was a pity, and looked up at the 9 surviving root ninjas again. Through the Byakugan, he could clearly see the amount of chakra in the bodies of several people. Judging from this, among these 9 people, there are 2 real Jonins, 6 special Jonins, and 1 Shunin. If it were just such strength, Qingming would not be very afraid. Even if he faced them head-on, he had the confidence to win the battle. But the key to the problem is that these people are root ninjas, and their true strength cannot be shown by just chakra. Since these people dare to deal with him, they must have been prepared. It is true that with the help of the Byakugan, he discovered them first and caught them off guard, making it unknown how much of the prepared means were wasted. However, Qingming does not think that they only have one plan. Therefore, he will definitely not approach these people unless it is absolutely necessary. Qingming would rather waste a little more chakra and use the advantage of flying to kill them than take the risk of going down and fighting them in close combat. From the previous root ninja who knew Sonic Ninjutsu, it can be seen that these people are very well prepared. It is very dangerous to approach rashly. Therefore, it is better to attack from a distance. As for the problem of insufficient chakra, aren't there a large number of mist ninjas on the battlefield over there? With these people as backup, Qingming really doesn't believe that he can't kill these people. With this thought, Qingming didn't say anything nonsense, grasped the distance, and output to the root ninjas below. For a period of time, Qingming seemed to have turned into a ruthless spell-casting machine. Various ninjutsu can be said to be at his fingertips, and several root ninjas were beaten to flee. However, looking at their appearance, Qingming sneered, "Poor performance. Others may not know the nature of root ninjas, but can Qingming not know?" It is true that with the help of Sharingan and Byakugan, he controlled the rhythm of the attack very well, leaving almost no chance for several root ninjas to fight back. But these are root ninjas. As long as they really want to fight back, they can use other people's lives to fight for the opportunity, and those who are regarded as abandoned will not object. But what about these people? Under his attack, they dodged left and right, one by one, cherishing their lives, and they were not the mission tools of facing death with indifference in his memory. Obviously, these people are using this method to lower his vigilance and find an opportunity to kill with one blow. Unfortunately, Qingming had already made up his mind and acted cautiously. So, no matter how they performed, he would not get close to the other party and only use ninjutsu to attack from a distance. In this way, the initiative was completely in his hands. However, he did not think about exposing these people. Since they were willing to play, Qingming did not mind playing with them. Anyway, he was not the one who got hurt in the end. Chapter 535, Well Prepared. Time passed by minute. Soon, 5 or 6 minutes passed. Seeing that Qingming had not revealed any flaws, several root ninjas looked at each other and immediately understood what they meant. They could not wait any longer. Now, they were just pretending that they could not beat Qingming. If they let Qingming bomb them, they would really be no match. Therefore, they had to fight while they were still in good condition. That's right, they had to fight. Having lost the advantage of the first move, and with the tragic death of 3 people, many of the means they prepared could not be used. Although there were backup means, facing the current situation, they could only treat the dead horse as a living horse. Immediately, a root ninja who seemed to be the leader shouted, "Plan C." Hearing this, the 4 root ninjas in the field immediately stopped, and then occupied a position respectively, with uniform movements, and formed 3 hand seals in an instant. The next moment, dense black lines emerged from their bodies, and then soared into the sky and turned into 4 beams of light. If you look closely, you can see some floating sealing spells on the light column. These sealing spells spread rapidly around, as if to form a cubic barrier to trap Qingming in it. However, as early as when these people always stayed around him, they attracted his attention. In the past few minutes, he had also launched attacks specifically against these people. But even if it was more dangerous, these people did not leave their positions without permission. Even others were secretly protecting these 4 people. From then on, Qingming knew that there was something strange about these 4 people. Sure enough, they suddenly cast some kind of strange sealing barrier. Even though it has not closed yet, Qingming's body and mind have already felt an invisible pressure. Without any hesitation, Qingming immediately flapped his wings and planned to leave this area before the barrier was formed. However, these root ninjas dared to take action, so they naturally had a certain degree of confidence. Almost at the moment he turned around, several vacuum bullets shot towards him, and the speed was so fast that even he couldn't help but look sideways. That's right, this is the B-level ninjutsu, wind-style vacuum jade. In Danzo's hands, this technique could even injure Sasuke, who had opened his main Gekyo Sharingan. But now, Qingming was only maintaining the state of 3 Magatama. It was only a special Jonin of the root to cast this technique now, otherwise he might not be able to dodge it safely. Swoosh, 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 several vacuum bullets flew past his ears. Qingming breathed a sigh of relief and planned to continue flying away. But at this moment, a shuttle-shaped bird appeared out of thin air, and then swooped towards him like lightning, and its sharp beak tried to pierce his heart from behind. When it flew, it was almost silent, and the timing was perfect. At this time, if it was someone else, they might really suffer a serious injury. But Qingming was different. Almost a moment it appeared, Qingming's Byakugan noticed it. So, he turned around, and the chakra scalpel was cast, and he chopped off the bird's head with one blow. Ting! A mournful cry came from the bird's beak. At the same time, in the forest below, the only remaining root chunin also let out a cry of pain. Qingming glanced at the other party with his peripheral vision. Through his Byakugan, he had already discovered that this strange summoned beast was the one that the other party had just summoned. Moreover, judging from the other party's appearance, he should have used some kind of secret technique to temporarily control the body of the flying bird. Yes, the other party was able to launch such a precise attack as soon as he appeared. There was no other possibility except that he was controlled by someone. However, It was precisely because of this that the person who controlled him suffered a heavy backlash as the strange bird was beheaded by him. But all this was worth it for those root ninjas. Qingming looked around and saw that in just this delay, the light curtain spread by the four light beams had merged together, and the ceiling barrier was formed. Just as Qingming had felt before, when the ceiling barrier closed, he only felt an inexplicable pressure on his body and mind. You know, the body and mind are the foundation of chakra, and chakra is the source of the extraordinary power of ninjas. Once the body and mind are suppressed, without chakra, the ninja can't use it even if he has supernatural means. Just like now, Qingming can clearly feel that if he wants to use any ninjutsu again, the difficulty will be at least 10 times more than before. The chakra in his body seems to be suppressed and it is very difficult to mobilize. Obviously, the root noticed that the ordinary barrier can't trap him at all, so I don't know where to find such a special seal to target him. Sure enough, the sealing technique is the highest power in this world, Qingming muttered, allowing 4 transparent chains covered with sealing techniques to shoot out from the 4 root ninjas who maintained the barrier and pierce straight into his body. Qingming groaned. He could feel that the chakra in his body was more restrained, and it was more difficult to perform ninjutsu. Inhale, exhale, take a deep breath and then exhale slowly. Qingming ignored the 4 transparent chains on his body and secretly glanced at a big tree in the distance. There, a strange summoned beast that looked like a sloth was quietly observing this side. If he hadn't guessed, it should be the way these root ninjas use to monitor the main battlefield from a distance. However, it is now used to observe this battle. Obviously, this is their backup. Once they fail, everything about Qingming's battle will be recorded by the summoned beast and then transmitted back to the headquarters of the root. That's why Qingming didn't resist just now. Otherwise, with his reaction, he could open the main Gekyo Sharingan and activate the pupil technique, Shianshiyu, before the 4 chains touched him, and escape from this barrier. But he didn't do it. One of the reasons is that he was afraid of information leakage. Qingming didn't want to expose his trump card here and make Danzo alert out of thin air. Of course, more importantly, he has figured out some details of this sealing barrier and is confident that he can survive in the next battle. Otherwise, even if his trump card was exposed, he would not hesitate to use his main Gekyo Sharingan. After all, trump cards are not as important as life. With this thought, Qingming retracted his gaze, ignoring the huge pressure exerted by the 4 chains on his body, and swept his eyes to the 4 root ninjas who maintained the barrier. Through his Byakugan, he could clearly observe that the vitality of these 4 people was rapidly draining away, and the whole person was getting old at a speed visible to the naked eye. Obviously, it is not a simple matter to maintain such a special barrier. However, through their subtle expressions, Qingming discovered that this matter seemed to be beyond their expectations. Logically speaking, this sealing technique was performed by them, and it consumed their vitality. They should be very clear about it, so why did they show this expression? Suddenly, Qingming seemed to think of something, closed his eyes and carefully felt the chains connected to him. After a few breaths, he opened his eyes. Then, a touch of realization appeared in his eyes. Chapter 536 Disintegration. In Qingming's perception, the transparent chains connecting him and the 4 root ninjas were like scales, with him at one end and the 4 root ninjas at the other. As for the weight of both of them, it was their spirits and bodies. And obviously, even if the 4 root ninjas were added together, their physical and mental weight was not as much as his. That's why they had unexpected expressions on their faces. You know, according to past records, once the root ninjas were forced to use this fighting for life sealing technique, the enemy would be suppressed directly as long as they didn't dodge. But now, they could clearly feel that Qingming still had the strength to fight back. Not only that, the speed at which their vitality was lost was much faster than expected. In this case, they couldn't hold on for too long. With this thought in mind, they immediately signaled to the 5 root ninjas on the periphery, asking them to take action immediately and deal with Qingming. After receiving the hint from the 4 people, the 5 root ninjas did not hesitate and immediately took out a talisman from their arms, activated it, and attached it to their bodies. In this way, they would not have to worry about the suppression of the sealing barrier for a short time. Then, under Qingming's gaze, the 5 people stepped into the sealing barrier. Swoosh, 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 several kunai flew out, aiming directly at Qingming in the sky. At this time, Qingming had a hard time maintaining his flying posture, let alone dodging. So, he directly drew out the long sword at his waist and swung it. Ding, ding, Ding! A sound of metal clashing was heard, and several flying kunai were chopped off by him. Seeing this, the eyes of several root ninjas lit up slightly. After looking at each other, they immediately dispersed and threw the kunai in their hands again from different directions. Obviously, they saw that Qingming was unable to dodge and wanted to trap and kill him in this way. With the help of the Sharingan and the Byakugan hidden under the forward guard, Qingming could clearly see that among the kunai shot by the opponent this time, there were not only poisonous ones, but also ones with detonating tags. In this case, it is definitely not possible to fight head-on. After thinking about it, Qingming swung his sword to block some of the kunai with poison, and then flapped his wings to actively lower his altitude. Finally, he released the wind-style, wind wings and landed on the ground. Suddenly, Qingming felt that his body was much lighter, and the difficulty of mobilizing chakra was also reduced. Yes, maintaining the wind-style, wind wings all the time is equivalent to performing a ninjutsu all the time. Normally, it is not a big deal. His chakra control is enough, and this pressure is nothing. He can completely hold on. But now it is different. With the suppression of this ceiling barrier, every bit of space that can be operated is very precious to him. If he releases a little, he will naturally feel relieved. Just when Qingming was thinking this, 5 root ninjas rushed up. Obviously, they wanted to take the opportunity to surround and kill him. After scanning several people, Qingming was not afraid and immediately used the ninjutsu, lightning release, lightning body. Crackling, a flash of lightning flashed by. Qingming could feel that his speed and reaction speed had improved a bit. However, his lightning release, lightning body was only level 1 after all, and the help it could provide was quite average. But no matter how small a mosquito leg is, it is still meat, and Qingming did not despise it. In this way, he rushed towards the weakest root chunin with sparks and lightning, trying to get rid of him first. However, this ceiling barrier eventually affected his speed. Although the root chunin did not react, it gave the other 4 people a chance to attack. Especially the 2 real Jonins, their attacks were even faster, more accurate and more ruthless. One of them directly threw the kunai in his hand, trying to take the opportunity to shoot through his heart, while the other came to his side, wanting to take the opportunity to cut his throat. That's right, no one tried to block the attack for the root chunin. Their goal was one and only, and that was to kill Qingming. Sensing the danger, Qingming gave up his goal without hesitation and stopped. Then, he ducked to avoid the incoming kunai, and then swung his sword to block another kunai that was stabbing straight at his neck. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. Qingming suddenly exerted force with his arm and swung away the kunai in front of him. Then, he dodged a vacuum bullet. With a glance, he saw that not far away, a root special Jonin was opening his mouth and spitting out a second vacuum bullet at him. Without any hesitation, Qingming dodged again and avoided the attack. Then the third and fourth. After dodging 7 vacuum bullets, the root ninja stopped casting the spell. However, before he could catch his breath, a sharp sound whistled into his ears, causing his body to sway and he almost fell to the ground. This attack was launched by the root ninja who had previously performed the sound wave ninjutsu. As he had expected before, the power of this jutsu at close range was truly extraordinary. Even though he had just seen the other party's seal making movements through his Byakugan, and immediately gathered chakra and made corresponding defenses, he was still injured. Taking advantage of this opportunity, several other root ninjas launched another attack. Ding ding dang dang. For a while, the sound of metal clashing continued. Qingming used his Byakugan and Sharingan to fight against 5 people. Although he was at a disadvantage and suffered some injuries, his life was not in danger. On the contrary, the 5 root ninjas became more and more frightened and anxious as they fought. There was no way. As time went by, the condition of the 4 root ninjas who maintained the ceiling barrier became worse and worse, and the restrictions on Qingming became less and less. At first, Qingming didn't even have the ability to use the instant sword technique, but after a while, he could already perform this technique. Moreover, taking this opportunity, he attacked and killed one of them. Although it was only the weakest chunin, it was enough to make them alert. As a result, their attack became more crazy. Not only did they use others as bait, they were also looking for opportunities to die together with Qingming. Unfortunately, any of their small movements were exposed under the gaze of Qingming's Byakugan and Sharingan. Therefore, Qingming was not afraid of their fighting style of hurting the enemy 800 times and hurting oneself 1000 times, and even took this opportunity to cause considerable damage to some people. Seeing that Qingming was getting easier and easier, finally, the two root ninjas could not help it, and they left the battle one after another, and then quickly formed seals and each performed a powerful ninjutsu. One of them opened his mouth and spit out a large amount of water, covering the entire range of the barrier, and the other took the opportunity to perform a lightning ninjutsu. The two combined, instantly turning the entire sealed barrier into a pool of thunder. Qingming was in it, and naturally it was inevitably affected. In just a moment, his hair was electrocuted and stood up, and there were traces of charred black on the surface of his skin. Wisps of green smoke came out, and the whole person exuded a faint smell of meat. Obviously, he was seriously injured under the joint attack of these two people. However, even so, there was no fear on Qingming's face. Not only that, there was even a smile on his face. Yes, a smile. There was no other reason. With the release of these two ninjutsu, the four sealing chains that were firmly rooted in his mind and body disappeared. Here we have to mention the disadvantages of this sealing barrier. It not only consumes the vitality of the caster, but also this consumption will increase with the increase of the internal chakra fluctuations. Because of this, the root ninjas who besieged Qingming did not cast ninjutsu too frequently in the past period of time. Now, the reason why these two root ninjas suddenly cast powerful ninjutsu is that they realized that delaying it would only give Qingming a chance, so they decided to give it a try. However, in their estimation, even such ninjutsu would not cause the sealing barrier to collapse immediately, and they should have a few more chances to attack in the end. But the result was beyond their expectations. With just one time, this sealing barrier drained the vitality of the four root ninjas who maintained it, allowing Qingming to completely regain his freedom. Chapter 537, Taking Advantage of the Situation. He standing in place, feeling the chakra in his body become active again, Qingming twisted his neck, looked at the four vigilant root ninjas around him, and sneered. He raised his foot and was about to take a step. The next moment, a sharp pain came. Qingming frowned slightly and looked down at his body. It can be seen that the skin and flesh on his body that had just been charred by lightning were fading, and the flesh inside became fresh again. Obviously, after losing the suppression of the sealing barrier, his body's powerful self-healing power is taking effect. However, after all, the time is too short and it is not enough for his injuries to heal. Sure enough, 19 points of physique is still not enough. Muttering, Qingming raised his hand to form a seal and performed an A-level medical ninjutsu, palm immortal technique. A strong yang escape chakra was condensed by him, and then hit directly into the chest. Suddenly, his body quickly became normal with the chest as the center. Don't be surprised, the LV8 palm immortal technique close to LV9, combined with the powerful self-healing power brought by 19 points of constitution, has such a miraculous effect. Moreover, although his previous injury seemed serious, he actually did not hurt his internal organs. In this way, he will recover faster. Feeling his body improving rapidly, Qingming looked at the four root ninjas who surrounded him again and said lightly, "Okay, it's your turn." Although his voice was calm, the murderous intent contained in it was not concealed at all. At this time, if an ordinary person or ninja who had just walked out of school was here, he would probably be frightened and collapse to the ground, completely lose his fighting spirit, and let him slaughter him. However, these root ninjas are not ordinary people, nor are they rookies. On the contrary, they have experienced cruel training and have amazing willpower. They are not afraid of Qingming's threats at all. Facing the murderous intent released by Qingming, the expressions on their faces did not change at all. Not only that, almost at the moment Qingming opened his mouth, they took the lead and took action. Because they didn't have to worry about destroying the seal barrier, they attacked with ninjutsu. The first to attack was the root Jounin who had just performed the lightning release ninjutsu. He completed the seal in an instant, pointed his right finger at Qingming, and a flash of lightning shot out. The speed was so fast that most Jounins would not be able to react. However, in Qingming's eyes, this was just child's play. Not to mention now, even when he was suppressed by the seal barrier before, his Sharingan could see such an attack clearly. However, it might be difficult to dodge at that time. Now, clang, the long sword is unsheathed. A layer of faint green light appeared on Qingming's body, and he performed the instant sword technique. Suddenly, his speed soared. The incoming lightning brushed past him. In almost an instant, Qingming appeared beside this root Jounin. Swoosh, the knife flashed. Qingming swung the knife and hit the opponent's neck directly. Sensing the danger, The root Jonin immediately ducked and dodged the attack. At the same time, he extended his right palm and stabbed the kunai hidden in his sleeve, aiming directly at Qingming's vital abdomen. The next moment, the kunai passed through Qingming's body, but there was no feeling of contact with the entity. Looking not far away, Qingming had already appeared in front of another root Jonin. It turned out that Qingming missed the attack and directly changed the target of the attack. What remained in the original place was only a residual image. And the one that Qingming found this time was the root ninja who was good at sonic ninjutsu. Now, he was still preparing to perform some kind of ninjutsu. This was obviously to cooperate with a root Jonin just now. Unfortunately, Qingming, who lost the seal suppression, was too fast and did not give them this opportunity at all. Looking at the long sword coming towards him, the root ninja made up his mind immediately without any hesitation. He took a step back slightly, avoiding the fatal part, and then he used his hands to speed up the seals, and then he used the ninjutsu that he had prepared for a long time. Seeing this, Qingming hesitated slightly. In this situation, the opponent obviously wanted to exchange injuries with him. If he slashed with this knife, even if the opponent did not die, he would be seriously injured. But correspondingly, the ninjutsu he used would also hurt him. At that time, if the other two root ninjas attacked him, he would be in danger. However, Qingming hesitated for only a moment, and then he made a plan. He did not stop moving and swung his knife straight at the root ninja in front of him. Swish, the sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded. In just a moment, he cut a deep scar on the chest of the root ninja that could be seen to the bone. Puff, a large amount of blood gushed out from the wound. Immediately, the face of the root ninja turned pale. But even in this situation, he did not stop the spell. Under Qingming's gaze, he opened his mouth and spit out a visible wave. Suddenly, an invisible sound wave spread and penetrated into Qingming's body. The next moment, Qingming felt a cramp in his internal organs, and his face turned pale. Infrasound. In an instant, Qingming saw through the essence of the opponent's ninjutsu. It was not because of how fast his reaction was, but because he had suffered a similar loss from the mist ninja. However, it was precisely because of this that he had a certain degree of vigilance after noticing that the opponent could perform sonic ninjutsu. Unexpectedly, such vigilance actually worked. In this way, coupled with the chakra he had just gathered in his chest, the damage that the opponent's ninjutsu could cause to him was relatively limited. Ninjutsu attacks, no matter what form they take, ultimately rely on chakra to take effect. Therefore, as long as the chakra is concentrated, even if no opposing ninjutsu is performed, some damage can be resisted. At this time, the advantage of a large amount of chakra is reflected. Although Qingming now has only about 1/5 of the chakra in his heyday, it is still more than 25,000 points of chakra. Such chakra can already play the role of one force to defeat 10 skills. It is also because of this that Qingming did not suffer 2 serious injuries and can still move now. And this is enough. Almost at the moment when the opponent's attack was launched, Qingming rolled over like a lazy donkey and avoided the sneak attack launched by the other 2 root ninjas behind him. Yes, if he was attacked by these 2 people, his situation would be dangerous. But the key to the problem is that they have to succeed. And with the existence of the Byakugan, every move of these 2 people cannot escape his eyes. How can it be easy to succeed? It is also because of this that Qingming dared to take advantage of the opportunity when the opponent wanted to exchange injuries and severely injure the opponent. Now from the result, he won. The root special Jonin in front of him has completely lost his combat power, while he only suffered some minor injuries. Moreover, these injuries are recovering rapidly. Chapter 538 Recognition. Seeing their companions being severely injured, the remaining 3 root ninjas showed no expression. They immediately took advantage of Qingming's worsening injuries and launched a second round of attacks in an attempt to kill him. Swoosh, 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 several shurikens flew over. Seeing the reactions of these people, Qingming curled his lips and muttered, really cold-blooded. As he spoke, he activated his Sharingan, instantly locking onto the flight trajectory of these shurikens, and then threw out the same number of shurikens to stop them. Then, a flash of green light passed by, and he performed the instant sword technique and took the initiative to attack. The remaining 3 root ninjas, 2 real Jonins, one was good at lightning escape, one was good at water escape, and the special Jonin was better at wind escape. Qingming quickly summarized the intelligence of these people in his mind, and then formulated corresponding strategies based on their reactions and positions. Soon, the four of them started fighting. Sometimes they fought in close combat, sometimes they attacked from a distance, sometimes they competed in physical skills, and sometimes they fought against each other in ninjutsu, and no one gave in. Compared with ordinary ninjas, although these root ninjas have grown up rapidly by squeezing their potential, they have lost the possibility of breaking their limits. But it is undeniable that their combat power is top-notch among the same level, especially in terms of combat experience, which is much richer than that of ordinary ninjas. In addition, they dare to fight and their methods are very ruthless, so they are really difficult to deal with. However, it is just difficult to deal with. Even if Qingming's chakra is not in its prime and he has not opened the main Gekyo Sharingan, he is still confident that he can defeat the three people in a 1-on-3 situation. It only depends on how long it takes. After secretly glancing at the summoning beast that was still motionless and crawling on the big tree in the distance, like a sloth, Qingming secretly used the heart-to-heart technique to notify the shadow clone in the main battlefield to come over. Soon, the shadow clone found an opportunity, broke away from the battle, and flew over at the fastest speed. However, Qingming did not let it show its figure, but landed in the forest early, and then followed his instructions and approached the sloth quietly. After approaching, the shadow clone found that it was difficult to notice the sloth with the naked eye. It seemed to be integrated with a big tree, and there was no difference in appearance. In addition, its breath was very weak. If you don't lock the target in advance and sense it carefully, you can't find it. Obviously, this is a summoned beast that is very suitable for lurking and surveillance. I don't know where Danzo found this summoned beast. Muttering to himself, the shadow clone no longer hesitated and immediately performed the instant body technique. In the blink of an eye, he appeared next to the sloth. The next moment, a cold light flashed, and the shadow clone swung a knife, and was about to cut the sloth in half while it didn't react. However, his long knife hit the opponent, but no blood flowed out. The sloth was split into 2 pieces of bark. Looking at the sloth itself, it had already disappeared. The shadow clone only saw the afterimage left before it disappeared. In the distance, Qingming's real body, who was fighting with 3 root ninjas, also saw this scene. In fact, with the help of the perspective ability of the Byakugan, he could see more clearly than the shadow clone. At first, the sloth did not notice the existence of the shadow clone, but when the shadow clone approached within 1 meter of it, it immediately reacted. It first performed a ninjutsu similar to the substitution technique at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye, exchanging its position with the bark under it. Then, taking advantage of the gap when the bark was chopped by the shadow clone, it lifted the summoning technique. In the end, it completely disappeared from the spot. Qingming did not expect that this summoned beast, which looked like the sloth in his previous life, would burst out with such reaction power after encountering danger. This really surprised Qingming. However, he called the shadow clone over just to try it out. Now, although he did not kill it and solve the future troubles, it would be good to drive it away. Because in this way, he can use his full strength. With this thought, Qingming cast his eyes on the 3 root ninjas in front of him. At this time, the root ninja who was good at water escape ninjutsu seemed to have noticed something, and turned back to look at the direction where the sloth had been before, and then he saw Qingming's shadow clone. The other 2 root ninjas saw their reactions and followed his gaze, and also saw Qingming's shadow clone. At this time, they didn't understand that there was a problem with their backup. So, the 3 of them looked at each other and planned to retreat immediately. That's right, retreat. It's not that they are afraid of death, but they can't sacrifice meaninglessly. Before, they would rather die than leave, just to test Qingming's more methods, so that the organization can act more smoothly next time. But now, the summoned beasts responsible for transmitting intelligence have disappeared, and there is no point in them continuing to fight. In this case, it is better to keep a useful body and wait for the next action. Of course, this is also because they have confirmed that the 3 of them cannot take down Qingming, otherwise they will definitely fight to the death. Unfortunately, if they want to leave, it depends on whether Qingming agrees. Without the sloth observing from a distance, Qingming can use all his strength to quickly deal with these people. In this way, he naturally cannot let the 3 people go. However, before using all his strength, he still cautiously activated his Byakugan and observed the surroundings again. After confirming that there were really no outsiders around, Qingming directly opened the main Gekyo Sharingan. In an instant, the 3 Magatama in his pupils stretched rapidly, and the head of each Magatama overlapped with a black dot in the center. In the end, The black dot became larger and occupied almost 1/3 of the area of the pupil. Then, the elongated tails of the three megatoma also split into two, turning into 6 curved black lines, at a 60-degree angle, connected to the black dot in the center. At this moment, his Sharingan was like a burning black sun, full of mystery. The leading root ninja was stunned when he saw his eyes, then seemed to remember something. His pupils shrank suddenly, and he unconsciously said, "Mangekyo, you opened the Mangekyo Sharingan." Even with a calm thinking of the root ninja, the other party's words were filled with surprise and disbelief. Hearing the other party's words, Qingming asked with interest, "You actually knew?" The root ninja did not answer his question, but immediately looked away, and shouted loudly, "Run away!" Separately, while speaking, he had already performed the flash body technique and ran away. Seeing this, the other two were just a step late, and they also separated and ran in 2 directions. This information is too important. No matter what, they must take it back. Unfortunately, they are still too naive. Since Qingming has already used the Mangekyo Sharingan, how could he let them escape? Just then, Qingming took a step forward, and then the whole person disappeared on the spot. Today is gone. Chapter 539 Solution. In the forest, the leading root ninja was running wildly. Suddenly, several shurikens shot at him. The root ninja's ears moved slightly, and then he dodged horizontally and avoided the attack. He kept walking, trying to continue to run away. But the next moment, a figure fell from the sky and blocked him. In an instant, the root ninja stopped. Uchiha Qingming, seeing the person coming, Viper was shocked at first, but when he saw Qingming's eyes, he said, "No, you are not the real body." After saying that, he immediately formed a seal and performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. Bang, accompanied by a cloud of chakra smoke. The root ninja split into 4 and became 4 people in an instant. They did not hesitate at all. The moment one of them appeared, he rushed towards Qingming, and the other 3 split into 3 directions and fled to the depths of the dense forest. Seeing the reaction of the root Jonin in front of him, Qingming shook his head, without any nonsense, and immediately met the person who rushed straight towards him. As for the other 3, he was not in a hurry to chase. This time, as a shadow clone, he was just an auxiliary. The real main force was the main body, so he didn't need to worry too much. A quarter of an hour later, somewhere in the dense forest, Viper was running fast. Suddenly, he seemed to feel something and stopped abruptly. Viper looked up and saw a figure standing quietly on the branch of the big tree in front. Looking at the pair of eyes that were like the black sun, Viper knew that the real master was here. Recalling the information he had learned about the Mangekyo Sharingan, he immediately became very alert. Swish! Qingming jumped lightly and jumped down from the branch. He looked at Viper and said, "It's your turn." Qingming's voice was very flat, just like 2 unfamiliar people who met by chance and casually greeted each other. However, after hearing his words, Viper's scalp went numb, as if he was about to encounter some danger, and he couldn't help but want to turn around and run away. This is not to say that Qingming's words were very threatening, or that he was using the sound of his voice to perform some ninjutsu. When he dealt with a root special ninja who was good at sound wave ninjutsu, he did try to copy the opponent's ninjutsu. Unfortunately, even though he had opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, he did not succeed. This was similar to what Qingming expected. The Sharingan's ability to copy ninjutsu has its limits after all. In addition to being unable to copy ninjutsu with chakra attributes that it does not have, it cannot copy some more special ninjutsu. So what is a more special ninjutsu? It's very simple. As long as the ninjutsu is not within the 5 chakra attributes of wind, fire, water, earth, and thunder, it basically counts. And obviously, sound wave ninjutsu belongs to this category. So, he did not copy it successfully. However, he did not gain anything extra. The reason why he spent so much time to find him was certainly because of Viper's cunning, but more importantly, it was because he spent some time to drain another root Jonin who was good at wind escape. From him, Qingming copied and learned several ninjutsu with great power and practicality. For example, the B-level ninjutsu that can fire vacuum bullets, wind escape vacuum jade. Another example is the wind escape vacuum blade that can add sharpness to ninja tools. In the past, although he could also inject wind escape chakra into the long sword to increase its penetration and lethality, this mainly relied on the changes in the nature of wind attribute chakra. Now, with the help of wind escape vacuum blade, he can further develop this feature. Although it is only a C-level ninjutsu, it is undeniable that it is very practical. Once practiced to a high level, it is equivalent to adding a layer of special effects to the attack anytime and anywhere. Qingming is still looking forward to this. In addition, he also copied and learned a ninjutsu. Although it is also wind escape, he has never seen it in his previous life or this life. According to his experience, this technique should be a B-level ninjutsu. Its effect is to create a tornado and trap the enemy. Then, the countless tiny wind blades in the tornado will cut the enemy into pieces, and in the end, not even a bone will be left. The whole process is like a person being swallowed by a tornado, which is very terrifying. Therefore, Qingming named it wind style, wind devouring. After being caught up by him, the root Jonin was severely injured in a few rounds. Seeing that there was no chance to escape, he performed this technique, intending to die with him. Unfortunately, Qingming directly activated Heaven's Guard and watched the other party being cut into pieces by the ninjutsu he performed. Qingming still feels a little nauseous when he thinks back to that scene. There was no way, he was too close at the time. Although he activated Heaven's Guard, everything in the outside world could not affect him, but the tragic scene still made him feel uncomfortable. Shaking his head secretly, Qingming stopped thinking and ran towards Viper the moment he landed. At this moment, Viper's sense of crisis reached its peak. Obviously, the murderous intent on Qingming was the source of his sense of crisis. Viper knew that he must not expose his back to Qingming at this time, nor could he deal with it passively. He must find the initiative, otherwise he would definitely suffer a great loss. With this thought in mind, he immediately went to meet Qingming without any hesitation. Ding ding dang dang, a series of metal collision sounds rang out. In the space of a breath, the two fought for more than 10 rounds. During this period, Viper did not fall into a disadvantage. However, Viper was not happy. There was no other reason. As the battle continued, his sense of crisis became stronger and stronger. Viper did not think it was his illusion. At the beginning of the battle, he had not looked into Qingming's eyes. From the beginning to the end, he was fighting based on his instincts and perception of the surrounding environment. Therefore, his intuition is now almost the most accurate. The sense of crisis generated in this situation cannot be ignored by him. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, no matter how strong the fighting instinct is or how accurate the intuition is, it is meaningless. Swish! Qingming, who was in the battle, suddenly disappeared. Before Viper could react, a flash of cold light appeared from behind him and chopped straight at his right arm. What? Viper was horrified and dodged quickly. However, he still couldn't avoid Qingming's knife. Swish! The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded. A large piece of flesh and blood on Viper's right arm was cut off by Qingming, revealing the white bones. He could no longer hold his kunai, and it fell to the ground with a clang. Viper endured the severe pain, and instantly took out a kunai from his ninja tool bag with his left hand, and stabbed it behind him with his backhand. It can be seen that his attack angle was very accurate, and his target was directly at Qingming's carotid artery. Unfortunately, he stabbed in vain, and Qingming's figure disappeared again. The face of Viper under the mask suddenly changed, and he was about to take back his kunai and defend himself with all his strength. But it was too late. Swish! Qingming's figure appeared silently in front of him, and a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan appeared directly in his field of vision. Not good, Viper immediately said to himself that it was not good, and immediately wanted to close his eyes. However, Qingming did not give him this opportunity at all. The moment he appeared, he used the Genjutsu Sharingan that he had prepared long ago. The power of this technique is already good, and now it is used through the Mangekyo Sharingan. The effect is not something that ordinary people can resist, even if Viper is a root Jonin. Almost instantly, his consciousness was pulled into the illusion, and the whole person froze in place. Looking at Viper standing there motionless, Qingming breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, "Finally got it. In fact, if you want to kill the opponent, you don't need to be so troublesome." He didn't know the ability of his Heaven's Guard. As long as he seized the opportunity, he could easily kill him. But the key point was that Qingming wanted to keep him alive. He didn't forget that there was a traitor in his team. If he didn't get rid of this person, he wouldn't be able to sleep well. The only surviving root ninja was Viper, which wasted some of his time. As for the other two, the root Jonin who was good at wind escape was not mentioned. As he said before, he was swallowed by his ninjutsu in order to die with him. The root special Jonin who was good at sound wave ninjutsu was similar. He took the opportunity when he wanted to copy and learn ninjutsu, and felt that he was not his opponent. In order to ensure that the information would not be leaked, he directly chose to self-destruct. In this way, Viper was left alone. I hope you won't let me down. Recalling the fate of the other two root ninjas, Qingming looked at Viper in front of him and muttered. After that, he directly began to guide the scene in the illusion and search for the information he wanted. Sorry, there is only one update today. I will make up for it tomorrow. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 Return. So it was him. A few minutes later, Qingming opened his eyes and murmured. Viper did not disappoint him. As the leader of this mission, he did know the identities of all the members, including the inner ghost. However, what surprised Qingming was that the other party was not a member trained by the root organization, but had to obey the other party's orders because Danzo had a handle in his hand. Think about it, most of the members of the root organization have no humanity, and letting these people act as spies is simply a disaster. What is a spy? It not only requires extremely strong professional qualities, but also requires being versatile and able to deal with anyone. Only in this way can you lurk safely and obtain intelligence. These members of the root organization need to learn how to deal with people normally from books, so how can they act as spies? They don't have the ability at all. This can be seen from the memory that Danzo coerced and lured Yakashinono and Kabuto to go to other countries to perform undercover missions. Admittedly, these two people are capable, but if the root organization had suitable people, Danzo would not have sent two people who were hostile to it. Shaking his head secretly, Qingming stopped thinking about it, raised his hand and performed the chakra absorption technique, drained the chakra of the Viper, and then used the chakra scalpel to cut the opponent's neck. Bang! The body of the Viper fell heavily to the ground. After confirming that it was completely dead, Qingming turned his eyes to the direction of the main battlefield. Next, it was to cut the grass and root it out. That's right, he didn't intend to let the inner ghost go. Admittedly, the other party was not a member of the root organization, and everything he did was also forced. However, it was done, and Qingming would not let the other party go just because the other party was forced. Everyone must be responsible for their own choices. Looking back, Qingming looked at the body on the ground, raised his hand to form a seal, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, Sushoku Jutsu. Bang! A ball of fire suddenly appeared and ignited the body of the Viper. Then, the flames expanded rapidly. Sizzle! A sound of oil stains being ignited was heard. After a dozen breaths, the body of the Viper turned into a pile of ashes. A breeze blew by, and all the ashes disappeared without a trace. Seeing all this, Qingming nodded with satisfaction. He had dealt with the previous few people in the same way. After checking the surroundings again and confirming that there were no hidden tricks left, Qingming did not linger any longer. He raised his hand and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. Swish! A pair of light blue chakra wings appeared behind him. Qingming flapped his wings and flew straight to the direction of the main battlefield. At this time, more than 40 minutes had passed since the battle began, and more than half an hour had passed since he passed the information to Shinobuhisa. Calculating the time, the opponent should be here soon. In this case, he must rush back as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the Kurigakure saw that the situation was not right and ran away in advance, it would be troublesome. It was not that he wanted to keep these Kurigakure ninjas, but to deal with the inner ghost. Now this chaotic battlefield is the best time. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to spend a lot of effort to deal with the opponent. Qingming did not want to make things too complicated, so it would be best to deal with the opponent before the Kurigakure retreated. With this in mind, Qingming used the chakra feather robe in mid-air to protect his whole body, and instantly increased his flying speed to the maximum. Originally, he was not far from the main battlefield, but then Viper ran wildly for nearly a quarter of an hour, which really opened up a lot of distance. Fortunately, his flying speed was fast enough, and he would be able to get back in no time. 10 seconds later, Qingming flew less than halfway and suddenly stopped. Under his Byakugan vision, a few hundred meters away, in a forest, there was a ninja team. Qingming focused his attention and looked over there. Then, he saw 4 mist ninjas. Judging from the amount of chakra, One of them was a special Jonin and should be the leader, and the other three were only Chunin. At this time, they were moving forward cautiously. Looking at the direction of their movement, it was the route that Viper escaped. Qingming recalled the information he had read from Viper again. After confirming that they had no other cooperation except using the Mist Ninja for this operation, he immediately understood that these people had discovered the fighting here and rushed over to investigate. However, just in case, Qingming was determined to go down. By the way, borrow their identities. Next, he had to deal with the inner ghost, and he certainly couldn't use his own identity. Without evidence, he couldn't kill people at will, even if he was the captain. But he didn't want to make things too complicated, so disguising himself as a Mist Ninja was undoubtedly the easiest. With this thought, Qingming immediately lowered his altitude and flew over there. Finally, when they reacted, he performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. In a breath, a huge fireball was condensed by him, with endless light and heat, and smashed towards the four Mist Ninjas. Not good, retreat, be careful. Feeling the terrifying fireball above their heads, the four Mist Ninjas below were in a mess. Suspended in the air, Qingming looked at the four people fleeing in a panic and nodded with satisfaction. Ever since he performed the fire style, great fireball technique once in Eugenport, he liked this way of fighting. There are not so many fancy tricks, but only simple and fast. This is the best way of fighting for a ninja like him who is committed to defeating 10 with one force. What about the disadvantages? Not without. This way of fighting consumes a lot of chakra, and ordinary ninjas can't support it at all. Even Qingming would feel a little distressed if he performed it frequently. Fortunately, the existence of the chakra absorption technique allows him to easily replenish chakra. Therefore, when he has the opportunity to perform it, he never hesitates. Just when Qingming was thinking about it, the fireball hit the ground. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. The fireball exploded and turned into a rain of fire all over the sky, floating around. One by one, the big trees were ignited. In the blink of an eye, the area of 100 meters in radius turned into a sea of fire. Painful screams rang out in the sea of fire. Two Mist Ninjas did not escape the range of the sea of fire. They were first blown away and injured by the huge shock wave of the fireball explosion, and then engulfed by the flames. They were already dead. Even the two who managed to escape were covered in dirt, with large areas of their clothes burned through, and they were coughing all over. However, even so, they did not relax their surveillance of the surroundings, especially the sky. Way ahead of the mist-hidden special Jonin suddenly froze, and his pupils suddenly contracted. At this time, was there any figure in the sky? At this moment, a strong sense of crisis filled his heart, making him instinctively jump forward. The next moment, a flash of knife light flashed, cutting off the afterimagery left behind. Huh? Looking at the Mist Ninja who dodged his knife, Qingming exclaimed softly. However, he did not care too much. A green light flashed on his body, and the instant sword technique was performed, and the speed of the whole person soared. Almost in an instant, he appeared again beside the Kirigakure special Jonin. Swoosh! The white light flashed. This time, the Kirigakure special Jonin in front of him was not so lucky. Although he also sensed the danger and reacted, Qingming still cut off half of his arm with one knife. The white bones were exposed, and a lot of blood was spilled. Akihara Shinisuke's face was covered with cold sweat, and his face was frighteningly pale. However, there was no extra time for him to rest. Qingming's attack did not stop. After one knife, the green light on his body lit up again, and the instant sword technique was once again performed by him. Before, Akihara Shinisuke could not react, let alone now. Swish! The sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded, and the Kirigakure special Jonin rolled over and barely avoided Qingming's attack, but there was another wound on his body. This made his condition worse. Not far away, another Kirigakure Chunin who escaped from the sea of fire at about the same time as him wanted to help, but he couldn't find a chance. When he was about to attack, Qingming had already found an opportunity and used the illusion sword technique. When Akihara Shinisuke was a beat slower, he cut his throat. Haha! A strong feeling of suffocation came, and Akihara Shinisuke covered his throat with his eyes wide open. He stared at Qingming, his eyes full of unwillingness, but there was no point in being unwilling. In the end, he could only fall to the ground helplessly and accept death. Qingming was not surprised at this result. Not to mention that his strength was far superior to that of the opponent, he could not be his opponent at all. The serious damage caused by his sneak attack was enough to give him an absolute advantage. It can be said that the outcome of this short battle was already doomed. Chapter 541, Eliminating the Roots. Retracting his gaze, Qingming cast his sights at the nearby Kurigakure Chunin. Being started like this, the Kurigakure Chunin immediately came to his senses. He threw the kunai in his hand, and then, regardless of whether he hit it or not, he immediately turned around and fled in the direction of the main battlefield. However, before he could run 2 steps, Qingming's figure appeared in front of him. The Kurigakure Chunin was startled, but he did not stop, but swung the kunai in his hand and stabbed directly at his neck. Unfortunately, such an attack was really not threatening in Qingming's eyes. At the moment when the kunai was about to hide him, he slightly turned sideways and avoided the attack. Seeing this, Miyazaki Tomohisa's eyes lit up, and he immediately turned his wrist and planned to cut Qingming's throat. However, the next moment, a severe pain came. Miyazaki Tomohisa only felt a numbness in the right waist and abdomen, and then the whole person flew backwards. Qingming slowly retracted his right leg and walked towards the other party at a leisurely pace. Seeing Qingming coming over, Miyazaki Tomohisa coughed and struggled to get up. However, before he could stand up completely, Qingming came in front of him with a flash body technique. Miyazaki Tomohisa's pupils suddenly dilated, and the extreme fear made his adrenaline soar. "Die!" he shouted, and stabbed the kunai in his hand with force, piercing Qingming's heart. However, what greeted him was another Konoha Goriki cyclone by Qingming. Bang crack, the dull sound of broken bones sounded again. Miyazaki Tomohisa fell heavily to the ground. This time, before he could stand up again, Qingming had already come in front of him. The next moment, when their eyes crossed, Qingming used the Genjutsu, Sharingan that he had prepared long ago. In an instant, Miyazaki Tomohisa's consciousness was pulled into the illusion. Then, the whole person stood still, motionless. Looking at the other party, Qingming did not waste time and immediately guided the scene in the illusion to make him reveal the memory he needed. After a moment, Qingming retracted his palm and carefully recalled the information he had just obtained. Just as he had guessed before, these 4 people had nothing to do with the route. The reason they came here was because the noise of his previous battle with Viper and others was too loud, which attracted the attention of the commander of Kurigakure, so they were sent here to investigate. There were 2 other teams performing similar tasks with him. However, Qingming did not intend to look for the 2 teams again. After confirming that they had nothing to do with the route organization, he did not need to waste time on them. The support troops led by SYNOPSIS had arrived, and now the entire battlefield was in chaos. It was a good opportunity for him to deal with the inner ghost. If it was not necessary, he could not cause trouble. That's right, SYNOPSIS had arrived. The shadow clone who was walking with him had just told him the news through the heart communication technique. Therefore, it was time to go. With this thought, Qingming waved his hand and used the chakra scalpel to cut off Miyazaki Tomohisa's heart muscle, then set a fire, and before it was completely burned to ashes, he used the wind-style, wind wings to leave. 10 seconds later, Qingming arrived at the battlefield and joined the battle in a high-profile manner. And not long after him, another figure also joined the battlefield. Looking at his appearance, it was exactly the appearance of Miyazaki Tomohisa. Obviously, this was the shadow clone of Qingming. As for why he didn't change to Akihara Shinosuke, it's very simple. The opponent's strength is too strong, which is easy to scare the inner ghost. That's right, the inner ghost is just a chunin, and a special jonin like Akihara Shinosuke is a master to him. This is also the reason why Qingming took advantage of this melee to solve it. If the opponent is a jonin, even a special jonin, it would be difficult for him to solve the opponent. After all, there is no real one-on-one on the battlefield. If the opponent is in danger, he can call for teammates for support. At that time, in a one-to-many situation, accidents are easy to occur. But if it was just a chunin, it would be different. As long as he found an opportunity, Qingming could kill the opponent instantly, even if it was a shadow clone. In this way, he couldn't even call for help, so he didn't have to worry about being exposed. He did it as he thought. Qingming participated in the battle while moving towards the target position. Long before entering the field, Qingming had determined the location of the inner ghost through the Byakugan, and now he was watching from the sky, so he had nowhere to hide. Therefore, the shadow clone found the opponent soon. At this time, he was teaming up with 2 Konoha Chunins to fight against the siege of 4 mist ninjas. However, his condition was really not good, and he was distracted from time to time, which put a lot of pressure on his two teammates. As for why he was distracted, from his glances at the main body in the sky from time to time, Qingming could guess a little. He might not know the specific actions of the route, but from what he was asked to do, the sudden appearance of the mist ninja ambush, and the disappearance of Qingming, he could probably guess something. Now, after nearly half an hour, Qingming appeared again. In this case, how could he not panic? Therefore, even without opening the Sharingan, Qingming could see the worry in the opponent's eyes. With a thought, Qingming blocked the attack of a Konoha Chunin in front of him, and left his opponent to the other party at the moment of crossing with another mist ninja. Then, as if he had just discovered a battle on the inner ghost side, he joined it. Seeing that the newcomers were from their side, several mist ninjas were not too vigilant. In this way, Qingming joined the battle here. It didn't take much effort for him to find the inner ghost. In the first few fights, Qingming only showed the level of an ordinary mist chunin. After the inner ghost adapted, Qingming communicated with the main body and asked it to move closer. Suddenly, the inner ghost in front of him became nervous. Seeing this, Qingming sneered and thought that it was nothing more than a guilty conscience. He found a right opportunity, and when the other party was distracted by observing the main body in the sky, he suddenly accelerated and came in front of him. Huh? The traitor was startled and was about to step back. But the next moment, a pair of Sharingan appeared in his vision. Although it was only a flash, it still made him dazed. When he came back to his senses, a kunai had already pierced his heart. Oda Shunji covered his chest and coughed violently twice. He looked at Qingming with disbelief. He couldn't figure out how this mist ninja in front of him could have the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. However, when he saw Qingming's calm face, he seemed to understand something. He smiled miserably, and then he completely lost his life when Qingming pulled out the kunai. Chapter 542 End. In the sky. Qingming saw this scene. Without any hesitation, he immediately raised his hand to seal and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great dragon fire technique. Puff a flame spurted out of his mouth, and in an instant it turned into 3 fire dragons, rushing towards the battlefield here. In the field, the 2 Konoha Chunin who had seen their companions die and were about to step forward to remedy the situation saw this scene, and immediately gave up the attack and head to the side. Similarly, the other 4 mist ninjas also quickly dodged to the side. Taking this opportunity, Qingming's shadow clone also rushed into the forest. When he bypassed a big tree, he confirmed that no one around was paying attention to him, and raised his hand to cancel the shadow clone technique. At the same time, the 3 fire dragons fell to the ground, 2 of which missed, but one just happened to pounce on the inner ghost and burned him to charcoal. And this is exactly Qingming's purpose. In the case of being burned to charcoal, even if someone wants to get some information from his body or mind, it is unlikely. This is not Qingming's suspicion, but caution. Qingming could almost guess without thinking that after this, Danzo would definitely take him to a higher level. Judging from Viper's final reaction, Danzo had probably already begun to doubt his Sharingan. Otherwise, Viper would not have recognized his Sharingan as the main Gekyo Sharingan at the first time. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Although he was very cautious every time he opened and used the main Gekyo Sharingan, as long as he used it, it would inevitably leave traces. These clues may not be a big deal in the hands of individuals or some small organizations and forces. But for a big ninja village like Konoha, they are glaring clues. As long as they take the trouble to check, they will definitely come up with several related possibilities. At first, these possibilities may be more, but as the number of times he attacks increases and the traces left increase, the final possibilities will become less and less. In this way, in the end, the probability of guessing that he has the main Gekyo Sharingan is almost 100%. Apart from anything else, after this, Danzo's speculation in this regard will definitely increase. But it is impossible for him not to use the main Gekyo Sharingan at all. Qingming worked hard to improve his strength in order to do things as he pleased. If he was capable but didn't dare to use it, why bother practicing? Wouldn't it be better to just lie down? Therefore, it is impossible for him not to use the main Gekyo Sharingan. Therefore, both sides are now racing against time. However, it is fortunate that because of the caution in the past 2 years, he still has the initiative firmly in his hands. Therefore, Qingming is not particularly worried. Shaking his head secretly, Qingming no longer thought about it. After cleaning up the beginning and the end, he no longer paid attention to the battle here, and continued to attack the Mist Ninjas in other places. About 20 minutes ago, the Mist Ninjas who were responsible for cutting off their retreat finally defeated the shadow clones he left behind and came to the main battlefield. At that time, his shadow clones in charge of the main battlefield had not left. Therefore, even if those Mist Ninjas arrived, the morale of Konoha was still good. But within a few minutes, his shadow clone obeyed the call of the original body and left the battlefield here. Although he had given instructions before leaving, the Konoha ninjas in the field still felt panic, especially when he hadn't appeared for a while and the Kurigakure Jonins began to increase their offensive strength. It was also from then on that the casualties on their side began to increase rapidly. In just over 10 minutes, more than 30 people were killed. Just as morale was about to collapse, SYNOPSIS support troops arrived. In this way, the situation was barely stabilized. The reason why it was said to be barely, was that SYNOPSIS came in a hurry and did not bring too many people. Therefore, even if Qingming's body joined the battle now, they were still at a disadvantage overall. But Qingming estimated that the Kurigakure ninjas should not continue to fight. There are two reasons. One is that they have more support arriving one after another. The Konoha teams near the Blackstone stronghold have received SYNOPSIS orders and are gathering here. If all these people come, it will not be the Kurigakure ninjas who surround them, but they will surround the Kurigakure ninjas. By then, the situation will be completely reversed, and the Kurigakure ninjas will be in a very bad situation. As long as the Kurigakure commander is not stupid, this will not happen. Secondly, after the failure of the counterattack at Uzuport, the Kurigakure strategy on the entire front line has changed from offense to defense. This is the general trend. Perhaps these Kurigakure ninjas can rely on some intelligence advantages at this time to achieve some results, but in the end they still have to follow the general trend. Therefore, Qingming is sure that the other side will not fight for too long. The development of things is almost the same as he expected. Next, the two sides fought for about 30 or 40 minutes. Seeing that there was no way to defeat the Konoha ninjas in the field, and more teams came to support Konoha, Kurigakure finally gave up. At a certain moment, a shrill whistle sounded rhythmically in the field. When the Kurigakure ninjas heard this sound, they immediately formed a team nearby and began to leave the battlefield. Some people on the Konoha side tried to pursue, but under the joint order of Qingming and SYNOPSIS, they had to stop. The two made such a decision for different reasons. Qingming simply didn't want to cause trouble. Although he had basically figured out the ins and outs of this incident, it was only information obtained from the minds of two root ninjas after all, and no one could guarantee that they knew everything. If Danzo had any other tricks up his sleeve, it would be troublesome. Therefore, after Kurigakure retreated, Qingming chose to remain unchanged in the face of change. SYNOPSIS was cautious. Originally, this battle came inexplicably, and if Qingming had not personally asked for help, he might not have made a decision so quickly. Now that the enemy has withdrawn, his first priority is to find out what happened instead of pursuing them rashly. This is also in line with his identity as the commander of the stronghold. Half an hour later, in the sky, Qingming flapped his wings and flew quickly. When he was about to land, he released the wind-style, wind wings. The next moment, he stood firmly on the ground. Seeing this, SYNOPSIS hurried forward and asked, "How is it?" "They are most likely to have really withdrawn. I left a shadow clone to follow them, so there is no need to worry about them suddenly coming back," Qingming replied. "Is that so?" SYNOPSIS heard this, groaned for a moment, and then said, "Then we can go too." "Yeah," Qingming nodded. Afterwards, the two discussed for a while, unified their subordinates together, and under the unified command of SYNOPSIS, they quickly cleaned up the battlefield and rushed to the Blackstone stronghold. It took about half an hour, and in the afternoon, they finally returned to the Blackstone stronghold. Looking at the familiar buildings in the stronghold, Qingming felt a little more intimate. However, before he could sigh, SYNOPSIS took him and some of the senior ninjas who came with the team to the conference room and began to learn about the whole story of this incident in detail. At the same time, he was also prepared to report this matter to Naruto. Chapter 543 Follow-up. That afternoon, after the meeting, Qingming, SYNOPSIS and others wrote a report and sent it to Naruto urgently. In the report, Qingming told the whole story of the incident, including the actions of the root organization. However, he did not directly state that he knew the identities of these people, but only mentioned that a group of unidentified people attacked him. In addition, he did not say in the report how he found the other party. However, his words implied that these people were on his side, and the intelligence of this operation had been seriously leaked. In this way, if Nara Kigwang still wants to command other people, he must give him an explanation. Otherwise, if this matter is spread, who would dare to take the task? Obviously, Qingming did this to put pressure on the other party. With Nara Kigwang's IQ, from the information he provided and some other clues, it is not difficult to guess that Danzo and his root organization are behind this incident. After all, before this mission, the other party had already noticed it, and it doesn't make sense that after more clues, nothing can be found. Even if Danzo cut off the clues and there was no evidence, he should be able to guess the whole story. In this way, whether it is to give Qingming an explanation or to appease others, he must put pressure on the village. Of course, Qingming also knew that it was impossible to overthrow Danzo by doing this, but as long as the third generation restricted the other party's actions, it would be fine. Anyway, time is on his side. When the war is over, he will find an opportunity to kill him, and the matter will be clear. In addition, his implicit expression of dissatisfaction can also make him relax his vigilance and think that he is still within the rules. In this way, when he takes action, he can also catch the other party off guard. Various thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming no longer paid attention to these things after submitting the report. In the final analysis, the ninja world still speaks with fists. If he has this spare time, he might as well practice more. It just so happens that today's travel and fighting have delayed him a lot of time, and now it's time to make up for it. With this thought, Qingming immediately flew out of the Blackstone stronghold and came to the familiar dense forest to the west. Then he performed the shadow clone technique and began his own practice. While he was practicing, Nara Kigwang received the report from him in SYNOPSIS. After reading it quickly, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Just as Qingming expected, combined with the report he submitted and some doubts about the intelligence this time, Nara Kigwang quickly figured out the truth of the matter. Again, he muttered in dissatisfaction. With Nara Kigwang's wisdom, he could easily think that this was another action of the root organization against the Uchiha clan. Nara Kigwang still remembered that 5 months ago, when Qingming and his group of people came to support, they were ambushed by the Mist Ninja because of Danzo's deliberate leak of secrets. At that time, he also wrote a letter to the third Hokage, asking him to take care of Danzo. It hasn't been quiet for a few months, and the other party is out to make trouble again. This made Nara Kigwang very dissatisfied. Of course, he was not dissatisfied, not for Qingming or the Uchiha clan, but because he felt that Danzo's actions would easily disrupt his plan and cause loopholes in his defense. If the Mist Ninja took the opportunity to cause some trouble, he would still have to clean up the mess in the end. In addition, such repeated leaks of information would also invisibly reduce his prestige. If he gave any orders in the future, his subordinates might not work hard. Nara Kigwang would never allow such a thing to happen. The war was about to end, and if something went wrong now, he would be the sinner. Damn it! Cursing secretly, Nara Kigwang put down the report in his hand and wrote to the third Hokage again, asking him to take care of Danzo. The next day. Afternoon. Konoha. The headquarters of the root. Danzo walked into his office with a gloomy face. Sitting on the chair behind the table, he squinted his eyes, looked at the two people below, and said lightly, "Tell me, why did the operation fail?" Although his voice was calm, anyone here could hear the anger contained in it. It's not his fault, he was just feeling aggrieved. Not long ago, Sarutobi Hiruzen called him to the Hokage's office and questioned him about the actions in the Hidden Mist battlefield. He also sternly warned him not to target the Uchiha clan, especially the Uchiha brat. He said that the pressure on the front line was very high, and if he continued to do so, it would easily cause dissatisfaction among some senior ninjas. This made Danzo furious. Why did he do this? It was for the village. The Uchiha clan was a clan that was born evil. If they were allowed to grow and develop, the village would definitely be destroyed because of them. If he didn't take advantage of the current chaotic situation to get rid of those potential brats, what would happen if they grew up and caused harm to the village? Everything he did was for the village. As a result, Hiruzen was still warning him again and again. Damn it, the more he thought about it, the angrier Danzo became. Fortunately, at this time, a root ninja below spoke up and temporarily brought his sanity back. Then he said, "Your Excellency, According to the information provided by Qingming and our subsequent investigation, it is basically certain that the failure of this operation is because Uchiha Qingming discovered our arrangement in advance and took the initiative to attack, resulting in most of the means we prepared not being used, so it failed. The so-called Qingming is actually the name of the summoned beast of the root Jonin who is good at water escape ninjutsu, that is, the sloth-like thing. Not long ago, the root once again arranged for a person to contract the other party through the contract scroll, so as to obtain some information about that battle. However, Danzo was not very satisfied with his answer and asked directly, even if it was a head-on battle, with a 4-life seal formation, how did that kid escape? Your Excellency, according to the information provided by Qingming, Uchiha Qingming did not escape the shackles of the 4-life seal formation. It was delayed until Crane and others were sealed and their vitality was drained, and then they began to fight back, another root ninja replied. What? Danzo was shocked when he heard it. He was very clear about the effect of the 4-life seal formation. To be frank, even if he was trapped in it, facing the siege of several root ninjas, he could not hold out for so long. At this moment, Danzo was fully alert. He took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled. After calming down, he said, Jia, tell me everything right now. Before, he only listened to the results, but now, he must understand the whole story. Only in this way can he make the most accurate judgment. Yes, sir, Jia responded after hearing this, and then began to narrate his investigation results in detail, without missing any details. Chapter 544 Patience and Improvement. Half an hour later, Jia stopped narrating, and Danzo closed his eyes. He began to recall everything he had just heard in his mind, and at the same time connected all the information he had obtained about Qingming in the past, and deduced various possibilities. His fingers tapped the table lightly, making an intermittent click sound. Time passed by minute. At a certain moment, the sound stopped. Then, Danzo opened his eyes. Then, a ray of brilliance flashed in his eyes, which also contained an unconcealable greed. But soon, this greed was hidden by him, and he muttered, Don't be impatient. Don't be impatient. Have to try again. Hearing Danzo's murmur, Jia said, Sir, are you going to prepare for the next action? Danzo heard this and came back to his senses. He was about to agree, but suddenly thought of Sarutobi Hirozen's warning. It can be foreseen that the Anbu must be keeping a close eye on him now. If his guess is correct, then the value of that Uchiha kid is too great. Danzo raised his right arm with some effort, touched his right eye sealed under the bandage, and thought to himself, a 3 Magatama Sharingan has such power. If it is a Mangekyo Sharingan, then, yes, just as Qingming expected, although his actions this time were clean and neat, it also aroused Danzo's suspicion. If his suspicion of him opening the Mangekyo Sharingan was 1 before, then now it is at least 10. This aroused his greedy nature. However, Danzo finally held back. He looked at the 2 root ninjas below and said in a serious voice, from now on, stop all actions against Uchiha Qingming. Yes, sir. A did not ask why, he just did what Danzo ordered. Looking at the 2 people standing still below, Danzo nodded with satisfaction. The reason why he chose not to move Qingming for the time being was not because he was afraid of Sarutobi Hirozen, but because he was worried that Sarutobi Hirozen would intercept him. According to his understanding of this old friend, once his guess is confirmed and the other party learns the relevant information, he will definitely choose to win him over. At that time, it will not be so easy for him to succeed. So, he chose to be patient temporarily. However, what he didn't know was that it was this patience that made him miss the last chance. Of course, even if he didn't choose to be patient and forced to attack, there would be no possibility of success. With Qingming's current strength, if he didn't hesitate to expose his Sharingan, there would be few people in the entire ninja world who could defeat him. However, this would disrupt his plan. However, by then, he would definitely not let Danzo go. So, Danzo should be glad that he didn't continue to attack, otherwise his life might be lost. Qingming didn't know about Danzo's choice. At this time, he was still practicing according to the plan. On the other hand, Kirigakure's choice was also within his expectations. In the past 2 days, the Kirigakure ninjas in Fiayu Town did not make trouble near the Blackstone stronghold, and it seemed that they would not do so for a while. It was night. Qingming completed the first stage of training and returned to the Blackstone base. He took today's base briefing and quickly read through it before coming to this conclusion. Thinking back to the time when he forcibly captured the Abure Mukage from the Mist Ninja team that cut off their retreat, if he was more ruthless, he could have easily split one or two more shadow clones to wipe them out. However, he did not do so in order to leave a lead. There is no doubt that his act of forcibly rushing into the formation to capture people was very abnormal. As long as the Mist Ninja reviewed this action afterwards, they would definitely notice this. At that time, if they conduct a further investigation, they will definitely find that their people have been swapped. In this way, in connection with the subsequent results of the battle, they will inevitably have doubts. In this way, they naturally dare not act rashly. After all, no one knows whether there is a second Abure Mukage in their team. Therefore, they will definitely not easily launch an attack before they have completed the internal investigation. And this gave Qingming an excellent opportunity to practice. According to his previous calculations, his palm immortal technique would be able to reach perfection in about 5 days. Now that almost 2 days have passed, even if there is some delay in the middle, his palm immortal technique will be promoted in no more than 4 days. By then, the strengthening effect of this technique on his body will definitely increase greatly. In this way, the time of his body transformation will also be advanced. Once his body undergoes transformation again, the physique attribute will increase, which will definitely promote the improvement of his abilities in all aspects. Especially this time his physique attribute has broken through the 20-point barrier from 19 points, and the improvement will definitely be greater. Qingming is looking forward to this. Thinking of this, he put down the briefing in his hand, ate something quickly, and after filing his stomach, he returned to his residence and began to practice over time. The sun sets and rises. In a blink of an eye, another 3 days have passed. Time came to noon on the 4th day. On the west side of the stronghold, in the forest, Qingming is performing the palm immortal technique step by step to strengthen his body. Suddenly, a feeling of perfection came. Qingming was delighted, and quickly opened the panel to take a look. As expected, his palm immortal technique had been upgraded, from LV8, 48,720 50,000, to LV9, 00, of perfection. This was his first A-level ninjutsu to be upgraded to perfection, and Qingming was very happy. Inhale-exhale, he took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled. After calming down again, Qingming used the palm immortal technique again to strengthen his body. As he predicted, the LV9, 00, perfect palm immortal technique had a greatly increased effect in strengthening the body. Originally, it would take about 10 days for his body to reach the critical point of transformation. But now, Qingming carefully felt it and felt that if he still invested 36,000 chakra points as usual, this time should be shortened to about 6 days. Saving nearly half of the time, this improvement is not small. You know, this is not just the next transformation, every time after that, it can save almost this much time. In this way, his strength will definitely increase greatly. How can Qingming not be happy about this? In addition, after the palm immortal art is promoted to the perfect state, the treatment effect is also rising, and there is also an understanding of yang attribute chakra. Qingming closed his eyes and comprehended for a while, feeling that if he was careful, he could also develop a yang escape secret art similar to the body giantization of the Kyudeo clan. Unfortunately, it is not necessary. Not to mention that he has a lot of things to do now, and he is too busy. Even if he has the time, he will not waste his energy on this. Without him, such a secret art is not of much use to him for the time being. As for the future, if it is really useful, he can completely rely on hard power, or negotiate, or sneak in, and get it directly from the Kyudeo clan. There is really no need to develop another set by himself. Chapter 545 Transformation completed. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming quickly gathered his thoughts and began to perform the palm immortal technique again to strengthen his body. It was a hurdle to increase the physique attribute from 19 points to 20 points. According to previous experience, crossing such a hurdle could bring him a huge improvement. Therefore, Qingming was now eager to push his body to the limit, and then break through with the power of men's control. However, this was obviously not something that could be done overnight. Soon, time came to late at night. Qingming completed today's training and returned to the Blackstone stronghold. The next morning, he hurried out again and continued yesterday's training. In this way, time passed day by day. In a flash, time came to the beginning of November. It had been exactly 6 days since Qingming's palm immortal technique was promoted to the perfect state. At this time, next to the campfire, Qingming opened his eyes. He could clearly feel that his body had reached a certain limit, and no matter how much he performed the palm immortal technique, he could not make it move forward. For ordinary ninjas, there is no other way except waiting for the body to develop on its own and slowly grinding. Even if they are not born with good qualifications, they will stay at this stage. In this way, the upper limit of the ninja is basically locked. Why do you say that? It's very simple. The upper limit of the ninja is determined by chakra. The so-called ninjutsu, taijutsu, jinjutsu, etc. are just techniques to exert strength. And these are all derived from chakra. The stronger the chakra, the greater the power of these techniques. Otherwise, they are just some flower racks. And the amount of chakra of a person is closely related to the body. The cessation of physical development basically means that the chakra stops growing. Therefore, Qingming said that if a person's body stops getting stronger, then the upper limit is basically locked. And ordinary ninjas reach this stage, which is about 20 years old. As for the reason why they can still feel the improvement of strength afterwards, it is only because they rely on honing various skills to get closer to the theoretical limit again. However, Qingming is different. As long as he finds the right method, with a blessing of the proficiency panel and human defense, his physical attributes can continue to grow. In other words, he has no limit at all. Just like now, his body seems to have reached its limit, but he can use the power of human control to break through it by force, and then there will be a blue sky again. Glancing at the shadow clones who were practicing in the surrounding forest, Qingming thought and lifted the shadow clone technique. The next moment, all those shadow clones disappeared. At the same time, Qingming's mind had a lot of practice experience and memories. Closing his eyes, Qingming quickly digested these experiences and memories, and completely transformed them into the proficiency of the corresponding skills. After doing this, he took a short break, and then suddenly opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Then, a stream of blood flowed from his right eye. The power of human control was activated by him. When this invisible and intangible power was applied to him, Qingming only felt that his control over his body had greatly improved. Without wasting time, Qingming immediately formed a seal, performed the palm immortal technique, and then concentrated his will to guide the evolution of his body. Soon, more than 20 seconds passed, and Qingming's human control was on the verge of its limit. Then, he stopped casting spells. He felt his body and found that the invisible shackles still existed. So, after a short pause, he activated the power of human control again, and then continued to cast Palm Fairy technique to strengthen his body. Once, twice, 3 times. Soon, he cast Palm Fairy technique 10 times, and also used the power of human control 10 times. Just when Qingming felt that his right eye was a little blurry, the invisible shackles that restricted his physical growth disappeared, and with it, he felt endless comfort. The accumulation of the past many times of casting Palm Fairy technique burst out instantly, turning into a stream of heat, rushing in his body, allowing his body to continue to evolve. Crackling the forest was quiet. Only the occasional sound of flames burning wood. Qingming closed his eyes and carefully felt the changes in his body. Since the transformation, he no longer deliberately guided it, but let his body evolve naturally. In this way, perhaps he could not make his abilities in a certain aspect particularly outstanding, but he would not have obvious shortcomings. This is mediocrity for ordinary people, but for him who can continuously evolve and improve, it is all-round development. Time passed by. About half an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. At this moment, he felt as if his body had taken off a layer of armor, and he felt extremely relaxed. The limit of his growth seemed to have been opened. And Qingming touched his brow. The white eye that he transplanted into his body seemed to have undergone some changes in this evolution. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, the familiar light blue light curtain reappeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 1920. Spirit, 20. Chakra, 54,200, 132,724,138,868. Bloodline, Sharingan, Mangekyo, 17296/50000, 18,448 50,000. Byakugan, unawakened, 16/100, 30 out of 100. Skills, Chakra refining technique, LV5, 3366/5000, LV5, 3558, 5000, Wind Style, Rasenshuriken, LV7, 8200/20000, Wind Style, Wind Wings, LV6, 4400/10000, LV6, 7220/10000, Wind Style, True Vacuum Ball, LV1, 5/200, Wind Style, True Vacuum Blade, LV1, 7/200, Wind Style, Wind Devouring, LV1, 1/200, Fire Style, Great Dragon Fire Technique, LV5, 870/5000, Fire Style, Unburned Scorching Technique, LV6, 325/10000, LV6, 5125/10000, Water Style, Great Shark Bullet Technique, LV7, 2980/2000, LV7, 7540/2000, Water Style, Water Array Pillar, LV6, 110/10000, Water Style, Water Breaking Wave, LV4, 750/2000, LV5, 2350/5000, Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall, LV6, 2305, 10,000, Lightning Style, Lightning Body, LV1, 15 out of 200, Shadow Clone Technique, LV6, 4008, 10,000, LV6, 6804, 10,000, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique, LV1, 12/200, Chakra Absorption Technique, LV6, 5540/10000, Rasengan, LV8, 16/5000, LV8, 3256/5000, Chakra Feather Cloak, LV1, 30 out of 200, Chakra Scalpel, LV7, 1700, 20,000, Thin Wound Extraction Technique, LV6, 4200/10000, Heart Reflection Technique, LV8, 24131/5000, LV8, 26435/5000, Chakra Control, LV6, 2100/1000, LV6, 2250/1000, Guardian Seal, LV5, 1160/5000, LV5, 1760/5000, Sealing Array, LV3, 970/1000, LV4, 450/2000, Perfect Skill, Palm Immortal Technique, LV9, 0/0. Ignoring the other information on the panel, Qingming focused his attention on the blood column at a glance. It can be seen that his white eye's awakening degree has almost doubled, from 16/100 to 30 out of 100. You know, when the transplant was just successful, he tried to increase it a little, and he used the power of human control 5 times to the maximum. Moreover, he specifically guided it to integrate into the body. Now, although he used human control 10 times, it was to break the limit of the body, and he didn't work hard in this direction at all. In other words, his improvement this time has little to do with human control. In this case, there is only one possibility left, that is, his body undergoes a transformation, which will also lead to the improvement of the awakening degree of the Byakugan. Qingming thought about it carefully and felt that this possibility was not small. Because every transformation is an evolution from a cocoon to a butterfly for him. In this process, he deliberately did not interfere, so that it would obey the instinct of the body and proceed naturally. In this way, it is normal to gradually integrate the Byakugan, a foreign object, into the body. And this also brings him some convenience. With a thought, Qingming raised his hand to form a seal and lifted the guardian seal at the center of his eyebrows. Then, he concentrated and opened the Byakugan. Suddenly, everything within a radius of 1 kilometer was reflected in his eyes. However, Qingming just glanced at it quickly and stopped paying attention. Now, his attention is on the consumption of chakra. If he is right, as his Byakugan awakens, the chakra consumed to open it should decrease. Time passed by minute. After a moment, Qingming closed the Byakugan. As he expected, The chakra consumed after opening the Byakugan this time was indeed much lower than before. Although this amount of chakra is nothing to him, it is a good start, because it means that his body is accepting the Byakugan and the relevant genes in his body are being activated. In this way, it can be predicted that after it is fully integrated into his body and fully awakened, he should be able to use it like a real Hyuga clan ninja. This is undoubtedly good news. In addition to this good news, this transformation has also brought huge improvements to his abilities in other aspects. Chapter 546 Huge Promotion and Distribution. Qingming closed his eyes and carefully felt the changes in his body. First, the most obvious thing was the theoretical upper limit of chakra, which was directly increased from 390,000 points to 500,000 points, a full increase of 110,000 points. This increase is not small. Qingming estimated that at least in the next 1 or 2 years, he would not have to worry about the problem of exhausting his potential. Now, what he should consider is how to develop these chakras. At present, his most efficient way is to perform the chakra refining technique, which can increase his chakra upper limit by 32 points for every hour of operation. However, due to the limitation of his physical fitness, he can only withstand a maximum of 16 hours of operation per day, which means an increase of 512 points of chakra upper limit. In this way, to fully develop the potential of this body and increase the chakra upper limit from 138,868 points to the theoretical 500,000 points, it will take 702 days, which is nearly 2 years. There is no doubt that this time is a bit long. Fortunately, it is in the past. Now, his proficiency of chakra refining technique has reached level 5, 3,558, 5,000. According to the calculation of operating 16 hours a day and gaining 16 points of proficiency, it will take about 90 days, or about 3 months, for him to successfully advance to level 6. By then, the speed of developing his potential will inevitably increase greatly. In this way, it will not take 2 years. Moreover, this time the physique attribute has been increased from 19 points to 20 points, which has greatly increased his body's tolerance, and he can operate the chakra refining technique for a longer time. However, the specific situation still needs to be tested. With this thought, Qingming closed his eyes and began to actively operate the chakra refining technique to calculate its burden on the body. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes soon, half an hour passed. Qingming opened his eyes and let the chakra refining technique operate on its own in his body. He had already come to a conclusion. How to say it? It is worthy of a breakthrough in the big level. This time his physique attribute has been increased from 19 points to 20 points, and the changes brought about are huge. In the past, each time the attribute was upgraded, he could only increase the operating time by 1 hour at most, and sometimes it would not even increase. But this time, it gave him 2 more hours of operating time, that is, 18 hours a day. This technique has long become a semi-passive ability, so he doesn't have to worry too much, otherwise he really doesn't have that much time. And this upgrade will undoubtedly greatly shorten the time for him to upgrade the chakra refining technique to level 6, and will also speed up his exploration of his own potential. Obviously, this is good news. In addition, the increase in the operating time of the chakra refining technique also allows him to increase the amount of chakra he can recover through this technique every day. Originally, it could recover 32,000 points of chakra in 16 hours, but now it has become 36,000 points. However, these are small details. The real big details also depend on the speed at which the body naturally recovers chakra. Before, this speed was 250,000 points per day. Now, Qingming stopped the operation of the chakra refining technique and waited quietly for 10 minutes. It can be seen that on his panel, the amount of chakra naturally increased by about 2,400 points. After some calculations, Qingming came to the conclusion that his body's natural chakra recovery rate should be around 350,000 points per day. This value is 100,000 points higher than before. There is no doubt that this increase is very large. However, Qingming can understand it. After all, the last time his spiritual attribute was increased from 19 points to 20 points, the body's natural chakra recovery rate only increased by 54,000 points. This increase is obviously too small. At that time, Qingming speculated that this was because of his low physique attribute. Later, his physique attribute was increased from 18 points to 19 points, and the body's natural chakra recovery rate directly increased by 50,000 points. This time, His physique attribute increased from 19 points to 20 points, which not only broke through the level, but also restored the balance with his spiritual attribute, which made the potential brought by his 20 points of spiritual attribute fully released, and the improvement was of course great. In this way, the chakra he can recover every day has increased from 282,000 points to 386,000 points, an increase of 104,000 points. It just so happens that he is short of chakra now, and these chakras can be regarded as solving his urgent needs. You know, this is not a one-time deal like plundering other people, but there will be so much chakra every day. So, how to distribute it must be carefully considered. Qingming glanced at the panel and saw that many of his skills have been improved a lot in the past 12 days. Among them, Wind Style, Wind Wings was directly upgraded from LV6, 4,410,000, to LV6, 7,220 10,000. Even if it is not increased, according to its current daily investment of 20,000 chakra points and 235 points of proficiency, it will only take 11 or 12 days to successfully advance. Therefore, Qingming directly excluded it. He also excluded Palm Immortal Technique and Reflection Heart Technique. Among them, the former's proficiency has reached the maximum level, so there is no need to increase the investment. As for the latter, time is limited, and the original 30,000 chakra points invested are already the limit, so there is no need to increase it. Another one is the Shadow Clone Technique. It is similar to the Wind Style, Wind Wings, and the proficiency has reached LV6, 6,804, 10,000, which is not too far from LV7. It only takes 13 or 14 days to successfully upgrade, so there is really no need to increase the investment. However, for the Sharingan, since it was promoted to LV8, the daily investment of 25,000 chakra points has been a bit less. According to the current growth rate of 270 proficiency points per day, it will take 173 days to gather the nearly 500,000 proficiency points required for it to be promoted from LV8 to LV9. Almost half a year is obviously a bit long. Therefore, Qingming is going to increase the investment in it, directly from the original 25,000 points to 50,000 points. In this way, he can gain about 540 points of proficiency every day, and in just about 3 months, he can successfully advance to the level 9, 0/0, of perfection. As for the Fire Style, Unburn Art, Water Style, Great Samadhan Art, and Water Style, Water Break Wave that he had previously focused on, Qingming did not plan to continue to increase his investment. Because their daily proficiency increase is enough. They only need to be improved slowly. The remaining 79,000 points of chakra, Qingming plans to invest in Fire Style, Great Dragon Fire Art, Water Style, Water Array Wall, and Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall. At this time, their proficiency is level 5, 870/5000, level 6, 110/10000, and level 6, 2305, 10,000. Qingming plans to raise their levels to perfection as soon as possible. In this way, he can use more chakra on those newly learned ninjutsu. After thinking about it, Qingming decided to allocate 19,000 chakra points to Fire Style, Great Dragon Fire Technique, which can allow it to gain 190 proficiency points every day, and it will be promoted to level 6 in about 20 days. As for Water Style, Water Array Pillar and Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall, Qingming decided to allocate 30,000 chakra points to each. According to previous experience, these chakras can allow them to gain 300 proficiency points every day. In this way, it only takes 30 days and 25 days for these two skills to be promoted. And they are both B-level ninjutsu, and the upper limit is level 7. Therefore, he can save 60,000 chakra points at that time to improve other skills. After completing these arrangements, Qingming let out a long sigh and then started the last test. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547 News. After closing the panel, Qingming closed his eyes again, raised his hands to seal, and cast the Palm Immortal Technique to strengthen his body. Next, he wanted to test how long it would take for his body to reach the critical point of the next transformation under the strengthening of the perfect level of the Palm Immortal Technique. He already had an estimate for the spiritual attribute. According to previous experience, when his Sharingan's evolution degree enters the third stage, that is, when it exceeds 20,000 50,000, it should be able to feed back to the spirit and make it grow. And this time can be calculated. At present, his Sharingan's evolution degree is 18,448 50,000, and he can gain 96 points of evolution by casting the reflection heart technique every day. In this way, it will take only a little over 16 days to exceed 20,000 50,000. At that time, his spiritual attribute will increase. As for the physique attribute, he needs to retest it. As the basis for his strength improvement, he must know the growth progress of the spiritual attribute and the physique attribute. With this thought, Qingming collected his thoughts and began to practice silently. Time passed by minute. Under the night, Qingming sat cross-legged, constantly performing the palm immortal technique, condensing the yang release chakra, and strengthening the cells in various parts of the body. Occasionally, when he felt something was wrong, he would open the main Gekyo Sharingan once, activate the power of the human control in his right eye, and guide the body to evolve. In this way, round after round. Crackling, I don't know how long it has passed. When the bonfire in front of Qingming was about to go out, he finally stopped practicing. Qingming concentrated his mind and carefully felt the changes in his body. After a long time, he opened his eyes. A ray of brilliance flashed in his eyes. A smile appeared on Qingming's face. There was no other reason. According to his estimation, it would only take about 2 months for his body to reach the critical point of the next transformation. It seems that this is similar to the last time. But don't forget that it is becoming more and more difficult to increase physical attributes. In other words, the time required this time would definitely exceed 2 months, but it was shortened because his palm immortal technique had been promoted to the perfect state, and the effect of strengthening the body was enhanced. Qingming was very satisfied with this. He stood up, extinguished the campfire, and planned to leave. But at this moment, he didn't know what he thought of, and suddenly took out a kunai from the ninja tool bag, then rolled up his sleeves and fiercely scratched his arm. There was a sizzling sound, and a lot of blood gushed out, and a long cut appeared on his left arm. Qingming endured the pain and did not choose to treat it, but just watched quietly. He could clearly feel that the chakra in his body was spontaneously gathering there, and the flesh and blood near the wound were replenished by these chakras, as if they were activated, and began to heal rapidly. 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and soon, 3 minutes passed. Qingming stretched out his hand and wiped off the blood scab, revealing the white and tender skin inside. At this moment, the joy on Qingming's face could no longer be concealed. Not bad. Very good. Qingming said repeatedly while touching his intact arm. At the beginning, when his constitution attribute was increased from 17 points to 18 points, he had done a similar test. That time, it took his arm about 5 minutes to completely heal. Now, after 18 points to 19 points, and 19 points to 20 points, it only takes about 3 minutes to completely heal. This speed has directly increased by nearly 40%. How can Qingming not be happy? And this is only 20 points of constitution. If it reaches 25 points, 30 points, 50 points, 100 points, how strong will the effect be? Qingming simply dare not imagine it. Maybe by then, even Senju Hoshirama would not dare to say that his recovery ability is strong in front of him. However, to reach this step, it is not a simple thing, and he still needs to continue to work hard. Therefore, after just a moment of indulgence, Qingming calmed down, cleaned up the blood on the ground, performed the wind style, wind wings, and flew back to the black stone base. Nothing happened that night. The next day, early in the morning, after having breakfast, Qingming planned to go out to practice as usual. But at this moment, a messenger Chunin called him and said that Shinonobu wanted him to go to a meeting. Hearing this, Qingming frowned slightly. To be honest, he really didn't want to go to this meeting. Because in his opinion, it was a complete waste of time. The Mist Ninja didn't call again, and the content of the meeting was nothing more than some trivial matters, which were really not worth his energy. However, thinking of the rules of the base, and Shinonobu's performance of turning a blind eye to his use of shadow clones to carry out missions in the past 10 days, Qingming finally decided to give him this face. Anyway, it won't take much time, and he can just split a few more shadow clones to practice later. With this thought, Qingming went straight to the conference room. He came relatively early. After saying hello to several colleagues, Qingming performed the palm immortal technique on his own to strengthen his body. Several colleagues were already used to his behavior and knew that he was practicing, so no one was blind enough to disturb him. Time passed by minute. About half an hour later, SYNOPSIS walked into the conference room. Qingming opened his eyes and saw the smile on the other person's face that could not be hidden. Obviously, there was some good news. In fact, it was true. After just a few opening remarks, he announced a good news. Just now, the news came from the headquarters. Just yesterday, the village and the Hidden Rock village held the first round of negotiations. SYNOPSIS said so. What was the result? Will there be a truce? Hearing this, some people were shocked, some asked, and some were worried. In short, the conference room instantly became a mess. SYNOPSIS coughed twice, and after the meeting room was quiet again, he said, "It is said that the negotiations are going well. The two sides have decided to hold the second round of negotiations in 5 days. If everything goes well, the two sides will reach a ceasefire agreement at the end of this month at the latest, and at the middle of this month at the earliest." Hearing this, everyone in the meeting room smiled. Except for some extremists, no one likes war. In the past 2 years, almost 3 years, everyone's war weariness has reached a high point. This is true whether in Konoha or awakens. Therefore, the two sides have the premise for negotiations. These people may not know, but Qingming knows very well that this negotiation should be successful. Although there will be some twists and turns when signing the peace agreement, there will be a ceasefire in the end. By then, Konoha will be completely free and will solve the problem here. When the Hidden Mist village is also repelled, then this ninja world war will be almost over. It is precisely because of this that everyone in the meeting room is so happy. It's just that will the Hidden Mist village be so willing to give up the benefits it has obtained? Qingming didn't believe it in his heart. However, it was just a few more fights. Qingming was not very afraid of this. So, a smile appeared on his face. After that, SYNOPSIS answered some questions from everyone, and after resolving everyone's doubts, he arranged today's tasks and ended the meeting. After leaving the meeting room, Qingming paused for a moment, then flew out of the base and continued his practice. Negotiations and the like have little to do with him, he just needs to work hard to improve himself. Qingming always believes that the bigger the fist, the harder the truth. Chapter 548 The Calm Before the Storm. The sun sets and rises. In the blink of an eye, a week has passed. Just as Qingming predicted, the Kurigakure village did not intend to sit still and let things develop in a direction that was unfavorable to them. Since the news of the negotiations between Konoha and Iwagakure village came out, the Kurigakure village began to mobilize troops, constantly transferring troops from the mainland, through the forward base of the Wave Country, and entering the territory of the Fire Country. Moreover, they did not gather completely at the 4 breakthrough points, but were widely distributed along the eastern line of the Fire Country. This put great pressure on the Konoha strongholds along the line. Especially 2 days ago, after the news that the second round of negotiations between Konoha and Iwagakure village was relatively smooth came out, the Kurigakure village seemed even more restless. Sometimes, Qingming wondered if this news was deliberately leaked by the Iwagakure village in order to stimulate the Kurigakure village and let them create trouble for Konoha, thereby increasing the bargaining chips. Or, it was the efforts made by the radicals of the Iwagakure village and some people in Konoha who did not want the war to end to disrupt the situation. However, no matter what the truth is, as one of the 4 breakthrough points adjacent to the Hidden Mist village, the Blackstone stronghold must be fully prepared for war. This forced Qingming to compress his training time. Only his shadow clone technique has been promoted to level 6, and can split up to 30 shadow clones at a time. Otherwise, there is not enough time. However, multiple shadow clones are at the same starting line, practicing the same skill. Even if he increases the frequency of refreshing the shadow clone status, it will inevitably cause a decrease in efficiency. There is no way around it. Now that the war is coming, Qingming can't stand out. Now, Qingming hopes that in the future battles, he can extract more chakra to make up for his losses in the past period of time. Yes, in Qingming's view, this battle is inevitable. No matter who is the driving force behind this matter and what the truth is, since the Hidden Mist village has made so many preparations, it is impossible to stop. Now, it is just the calm before the storm. Qingming can almost foresee that after 3 days, when the results of the third round of negotiations between Konoha and the Hidden Rock Village come out, if it is still smooth, then this war will most likely break out directly. By then, the entire front will inevitably be caught in the flames of war. Shaking his head secretly, Qingming no longer thought about it. He led a detachment of his men and continued to patrol the forest southwest of the Blackstone stronghold. In a flash, time came to 3 days later. At noon that day. Blackstone stronghold. Command center. In the conference room, Qingming and a group of senior ninjas sat here, quietly waiting for the latest news. A moment later, Nobuhisa walked in. He sat down on the first seat without any nonsense and said directly, "The third round of negotiations has gone smoothly. 10 days later, the village will have the last round of negotiations with the Hidden Rock Village. If it goes well, the two sides will sign a peace agreement at the end of the month." There is no doubt that this is good news. However, in the conference room, no one smiled like 10 days ago. Almost everyone's face was serious. Obviously, the various actions of the Hidden Mist Village in the past 10 days have put great pressure on them, making them unable to laugh at all. In the conference room, you can hear a pin drop. After a long while, someone finally spoke up. "Captain, what does the headquarters mean?" Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes to Nobuhisa Sano. Nobuhisa Sano was silent for a few seconds before saying, "The headquarters does not have any extra manpower support now. There are too many strongholds to defend. The headquarters requires us to hold on for 10 days, obviously, these 10 days are a critical period that they need to bear alone. Not only will the Iwagakure battlefield not provide support, but they will also transfer some troops that have withdrawn from the Sanjakure battlefield to rush over. After all, a smooth negotiation does not mean that a ceasefire can be reached in the end. What's more, this negotiation itself is meant to be a test by the Iwagakure village. Otherwise, the other party would not set the last negotiation in 10 days. The reason why the other party did this is to see if the Kurigakure village can make greater progress in these 10 days. It can be predicted that once the Kurigakure village completely tears open the eastern defense line of Konoha within 10 days, the Iwagakure village will inevitably overturn the previous negotiation results and take advantage of the situation to enter Konoha. In this case, Konoha will naturally not relax its vigilance. In this way, the pressure on the Kurigakure village will have to be borne by themselves. Qingming knew without even thinking about it that this battle would be extremely fierce, unless the Hidden Mist Village took the initiative to retreat. But this was almost impossible. In the past 10 days, the other party had almost put their intention of attacking in front of Konoha. How could they easily retreat? This battle was impossible to avoid. Just as Qingming was thinking about it, Sano Nobuhisa spoke again. "Everyone, the dawn of victory is just around the corner. Let us all work hard for it." After that, he immediately arranged everyone's tasks without caring about how everyone reacted. Without any surprise, Qingming's flying ability was used again. This time, his task was no longer to lead the patrol, but to monitor the Mist Ninja in Fiayu Town, and to patrol the area within a radius of 30 kilometers of the entire Blackstone stronghold to provide intelligence support for the entire team. After hearing his task, Qingming thought for a while and agreed. Although this task required a lot of his energy, it was safe and gave him a certain degree of freedom. After that, he only needed to split some shadow clones to perform tasks, and he could move freely. Soon, the meeting ended. Qingming handed over his troops, and after replenishing various supplies, he performed the wind style, wind wings, flew high into the sky, and flew outside the stronghold. After leaving the side of everyone, he did not hesitate and immediately performed the shadow clone technique, creating 5 shadow clones. Qingming directly let one of the shadow clones fly to the direction of Fiayu Town, specifically responsible for monitoring the Mist Ninja there. Then, he let the other 4 shadow clones fly to the 4 directions of southeast, northwest, and ordered them to patrol the area within a radius of 30 kilometers. As for himself, the sky and the earth are big, but they are not bigger than his practice. With the existence of the heart-to-heart technique, he does not have to worry about the problem of untimely information transmission. Naturally, he can continue his own practice, and then pass the information to Sano Nobuhisa when needed. In addition, it is worth mentioning that after the past 10 days of practice, his proficiency in wind style, wind wings has approached the upper limit of LV6, and is only one step away from the perfect state of LV7. Qingming estimated that after such a high-intensity patrol for a day, His proficiency should be accumulated. By then, he will have an extra 20,000 available chakra points every day. So happy. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming stopped thinking about it, and after choosing a direction, he immediately flapped his wings and flew over. Chapter 549 Outbreak. As Qingming expected, when the news that Konoha and Iwagakure had successfully concluded the third round of negotiations and that the final round of negotiations would be held in 10 days spread, the Kurigakure chose to take action. The next day, in the morning, Qingming, as usual, asked the 5 shadow clones to perform patrol tasks outside, while he himself shrank in a place to practice. Suddenly, a voice came into his ears. In just a moment, Qingming identified the source of the voice. It was the shadow clone responsible for monitoring the movements of the Kurigakure ninja in Fiyu Town. He said quickly, "The Kurigakure ninja in Fiyu Town seems to be taking action. I saw them walk out of the town and are heading towards the Blackstone stronghold." At the same time, the shadow clone patrolling the ocean east of the stronghold also sent news that there were also Kurigakure warships approaching on the sea. The two messages verified each other, and Qingming immediately understood that the Kurigakure ninja was really going to take action. So, he directly used the telepathy technique to connect with the other 3 shadow clones, and said to all of them, "Don't act rashly, just keep a close eye on the movements of the mist ninja, and leave the rest to me." "Okay, yeah, understood." A variety of answers came out of his mind, making Qingming feel a little headache. He rubbed his temples, disconnected the connection, and then directly used wind style, wind wings and chakra feather clothes, flew high into the sky, and flew towards the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. It is worth mentioning that after the high-intensity flight yesterday afternoon and evening, his wind style, wind wings has reached the perfect state of LV7, 0/0, as he wished. At this time, when he used this technique again, his maximum flying speed could reach 300 meters per second. Although this speed has not exceeded the speed of sound, it is already very close, which can almost be said to be unique in the ninja world. In fact, Qingming was originally thinking that this time he could double his level 6 and completely exceed the speed of sound. But the facts proved that he thought too much. The speed of sound, whether in the ordinary world of the previous life or in this extraordinary world, is a solid barrier that is not so easy to surpass. However, Qingming was not too discouraged. Not to mention the speed of 300 meters per second, if flying at full speed, it can reach 1080 kilometers per hour, which is completely enough in the ninja world. Even if it is not enough, the ninja world also has space teleportation technology. And this is the ideal means for Qingming to cross long distances in the future. Of course, he will not give up the supersonic means. After all, space teleportation technology generally has coordinate requirements, which is sometimes not so convenient. Therefore, it is still necessary to develop a ninjutsu that can fly at supersonic speed. Qingming also has some ideas in his mind. Among the 5 escape techniques, wind escape is slightly soft in some directions, and the flying ninjutsu developed using it is indeed not easy to fly at supersonic speed. But what if it is replaced with lightning escape? As we all know, lightning escape is about an explosion. The 4th generation Reikage can even use lightning escape to strengthen himself, so as to keep up with the speed of Minato Namikaze's flying thunder god technique, which is enough to show its potential. If we use it as a foundation to create a flying ninjutsu, can we achieve supersonic flight? Qingming feels that it is possible. However, at present, his mastery of lightning attribute chakra is really not deep, and he does not have extra time to study, so he can only put it aside for the time being. However, once he completes this technique in the future and learns a space teleportation ninjutsu, then his means of traveling will be complete. For long-distance raids, there is the wind style, wind wings. For short-distance bursts, there is the lightning-style flying ninjutsu, and for ultra-long-distance movement, there is the space teleportation ninjutsu. In this way, there will be no place in the ninja world that he cannot go. Qingming fantasized in his heart, and unknowingly, he had already approached the Blackstone stronghold. However, this time he did not land directly in the stronghold. The situation is tense now, even he must go through inspection before entering. Although this inspection is just a formality for him, the rules are the rules, and Qingming does not want to break them at will. When he came to the outside of the stronghold, Qingming matched the password and code, quickly passed the inspection, and walked into the stronghold. After that, he rushed to the direction of the headquarters without stopping. At this time, Seno Nobuhisa and some senior ninjas were waiting here. Or rather, they had been waiting here all the time. Since yesterday afternoon, he has sent intelligence almost every 2 hours, and this intelligence is an important basis for Seno Nobuhisa and others to judge the situation. Therefore, if there is no major event, they will not leave here. However, in the past, Qingming came as a shadow clone, but this time it became the real body. At this moment, Seno Nobuhisa and others became nervous. Qingming did not waste any words and immediately told the situation seen by the two shadow clones. When they heard the news that the mist ninja was dispatched, Seno Nobuhisa and others unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. This is not because they have any perfect confidence, but it is better to have the guillotine fall than to have it hanging over their heads all the time. Now, with accurate news, they don't have to worry about gains and losses, they just need to concentrate on dealing with the upcoming mist ninja. Seno Nobuhisa sorted out his thoughts and immediately assigned tasks to everyone. The tasks of other people have changed to some extent, but Qingming's task has not changed. His main task is to monitor the movements of the mist ninja in all directions. However, the interval for transmitting intelligence will be shortened from 2 hours to 1 hour. In addition, he needs to contact several nearby bases to see if there are any unusual movements of mist ninja there, so as to ensure the safety of the entire front line. After receiving the order, Qingming did not stay for too long, and immediately performed wind style, wings of wind and chakra feather clothes, flew high into the sky, and flew outside the base. And soon after he left, the entire black stone base seemed to come alive. Teams of Konoha ninjas walked out of the base, and then, under the leadership of various senior ninjas, went to the road to block the mist ninja. That's right, Seno Nobuhisa did not intend to put the battlefield in the black stone base or nearby. He planned to take the initiative to attack. After that, the black stone base will only exist as a logistics center, providing supplies and equipment to the various teams on the front line, while taking on the task of treating the wounded. Of course, he did this because of the intelligence provided by Qingming. The mist ninjas who came by Boretzi are not known for now, but the mist ninjas in Fiayu town did not walk together. They were divided into several groups and were advancing towards the Blackstone stronghold along different routes. In this way, they naturally have to be flexible. Giving up large-scale group battles and starting small blocking battles is the choice of Seno Nobuhisa. At the same time, this is also a familiar battle scene for ninjas. Large-scale melees like the ones in the past involving hundreds or thousands of people actually only occur when one side shrinks or the other side's target is particularly obvious. Otherwise, ninjas usually don't start such a big battle, which is not very beneficial for ninjas to exert their own subjective initiative. Thanks to the book friend, it's a good book, very good for the reward of 1,000 starting coins. Chapter 550, All-Out Attack and Opportunity. Kill ding ding dang dang boom bang. In the south of the Blackstone stronghold, in a dense forest, two teams of ninjas were fighting. One of them was the Mist Ninja, and the other was the Konoha Ninja. After more than 2 hours of running, they finally met in this dense forest. After that, it was like enemies meeting, and they were extremely jealous. They fought almost without saying anything. For a while, all kinds of shouts and killing sounds, the collision of ninja tools, the boom of detonating tags, and the screams and wails of injured ninjas resounded throughout the forest. And this is just a microcosm of the entire battlefield. At the same time as this battle, there are dozens or hundreds of places. Through the shadow clone, Qingming already knew that several nearby strongholds were also attacked by the Mist Ninja. Among them, some commanders, like Seno Nobuhisa, chose to let their ninjas take the initiative to attack, while some chose to hold on and wait for help because the strongholds were not strong enough. But no matter what choice they made, they inevitably joined this war. At the same time, Qingming also learned through Seno Nobuhisa's contact with the headquarters that now it is not only the few strongholds near them that are fighting, but also some other places. Nowadays, the entire eastern defense line of Konoha is almost caught in the flames of war. Therefore, Qingming said that this battlefield is just a trivial microcosm. This time, Kirigakure did not play any tricks at all, and directly attacked across the board. Therefore, the battles everywhere were very fierce. Even Qingming had to split more shadow clones to grasp the intelligence of all nearby battlefields in time. However, it was precisely because of his existence that their stronghold, which was adjacent to one of the 4 major breakthrough points of Kirigakure, was still stable even though it was greatly targeted. After confirming this, Qingming planned to use the intelligence advantage in his hands to seek some personal benefits for himself. He did not forget that in the past 10 days, because of the unusual movements of Kirigakure, he had wasted a lot of chakra. Except for a few skills, the growth rate of other skills did not meet expectations. At that time, he thought that after the war started, he must make up for it from Kirigakure. Now, it's time. Moreover, he also found a good opportunity: Blackstone Stronghold. West. In a jungle, a dozen mist ninjas were advancing rapidly. They bypassed several battlefields and headed straight for the Blackstone Stronghold further east. As the logistics center of Konoha in this battlefield, the importance of the Blackstone Stronghold is unquestionable. Once it is destroyed, even if it is not completely destroyed, it will greatly affect the Konoha ninjas fighting on the front line. And the goal of this Mist Ninja Squad is to go deep behind the enemy and destroy this stronghold. They even sacrificed some troops to attract Konoha's attention, just to let these people sneak in. This squad was also very competitive. They found a loophole under the layers of blockade of Konoha and sneaked behind the battle line. If everything goes well, they will arrive at a Blackstone stronghold in an hour, and then take advantage of the empty defense there to launch a sabotage operation. But this is a situation where everything goes well. But the fact is that their whereabouts were discovered by Qingming in advance. That's right, it was not discovered by Qingming's shadow clone, but by his real body. These people were also unlucky. They did not ignore Qingming, who was hiding in the forest almost the whole time. If it was a shadow clone, they might not be discovered by the Sharingan alone. But who made them run into Qingming's real body, who happened to be patrolling here? With the perspective ability of the Byakugan, Qingming could find them even if they were hiding in the forest or underground. However, in order to avoid alerting the enemy, Qingming did not choose to attack directly, but pretended to be a shadow clone, casually scanned the jungle below, and flew to the front battlefield. In the past period of time, these mist ninjas have encountered Qingming patrolling over the battlefield many times, knowing that they were all shadow clones, so they did not doubt it. Of course, even if they knew he was the real body, these people would not worry too much. After all, they did not know that Qingming had the Byakugan. So, after Qingming left, these people continued on their way to the Blackstone Stronghold. What they did not know was that after being out of their sight, Qingming released the wind-style wind wings, fell into the forest, and then quietly followed behind them. About half an hour later, these mist ninjas came to a place not far from the Blackstone Stronghold. In order to ensure that they could be in good condition for the next action, they decided to take a break. At this time, Qingming took action. He threw a shuriken, then raised his hand to seal and performed the ninjutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Although his Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique was only at the entry level of LV1 and could not be performed in a fierce battle, if the enemy stopped like this and gave him the opportunity to prepare, then he would have no problem using it. Almost in an instant, the shuriken he threw turned into hundreds of them, all spinning and flying towards the Mist Ninja Squad. Qingming had a very good grasp of the timing. These Mist Ninjas had just received the order to rest, and their tense spirits were rarely relaxed, and Qingming's attack came. However, being able to be sent to perform the stealing mission, the strength of these Mist Ninjas was naturally not bad. Almost at the moment when Qingming completed the spell, they reacted. However, when they saw the shuriken flying all over the sky, they couldn't help but tremble in their hearts, thinking that they were surrounded, and unconsciously formed a defensive formation. And this is exactly what Qingming wanted to see. Almost the next moment, he raised his hand to form a seal and performed a ninjutsu, fire style, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Puff a flame spurted out of his mouth, and instantly turned into 3 fire dragons, following the shuriken, and rushed towards the mist ninjas in 3 directions, left, top, and right. Those mist ninjas had just blocked the sneak attack of hundreds of shurikens, and before they could stand firm, they had to face the siege of 3 giant fire dragons, and they couldn't react in time. However, at this moment, a mist-hidden ninja and 2 special Jonin standing on the edge of the team took action. They saw them quickly forming seals, and then opened their mouths and performed a ninjutsu to block the attack of the fire dragon. Seeing this, the mist-hidden ninjas, who unconsciously moved closer again, breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, a thin column of water shot out from the forest, instantly piercing through one of them, and even the big tree behind them was shot through. A painful scream came from the mouth of the mist ninja. However, the leading mist-hidden ninja didn't care about his life or death. When he saw that the water column showed signs of moving, he immediately shouted loudly, "Be careful!" At the same time, he raised his hand to form a seal, as if he wanted to perform some ninjutsu to block Qingming's next move. But it was too late. After 11 days of training in the past, Qingming's water-style, water-cutting wave has been promoted to level 6, and the effect has been improved a little bit compared to before. He just turned his head slightly and controlled the water column to sweep across the entire area where the Mist Ninja team gathered in front of him. Ah! Painful screams rang out one after another. In just this one move, 3 Mist Hidden Ninja were cut in half, and 1 lost half of his arm. If the Mist Ninja who was pierced by the water column at the beginning is included, that is 5 people. This almost accounts for 1/3 of all the Mist Ninja. Admittedly, these casualties were only chunin, but the death and injury of so many people in a short period of time still caused a great psychological impact on the Mist Ninja. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.